Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is July 24th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign living ancient Article 3, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan consular court action. We are the sovereign living justices in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. I am sovereign living justice Pauline Denise Ritchie, and my free chosen sovereign appellation is like to jure. Both are in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco. We are the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are the ancient Washington District for Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our ascension and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time. We are the highest court at earth, and for this we are grateful. Islam. So, the first thing that I want to point out today in the law is an admission by the United States Corporation Company that they do not rule anything on earth at all. In writing, we can show you that. So I'm going to put this link in the chat so that you can follow with what we're saying. Here you go. And this link will also be under this video on YouTube at Like to Jure channel. So let's go ahead and pull this up on the screen. So what we're looking at on this .gov website, here, let's pull it up. Is congressional bills from the 117th Congress. This is House Resolution 279. It's the first session of the 117th Congress. And as you know, and as we all have stated previously, whenever we're looking at these types of documents, these are acts. This is not the real thing, because there are no real congressional assemblies and meetings unless they are done by us, the Moors. So all that we see when we go out onto the internet and we pull up, you know, the quote unquote Library of Congress and all of that is acts, and it's almost like reading a Hollywood script until we put it on the public record. When we put it on the public record, it then becomes real. Okay? So we must publish and approve and validate anything that we see and say, okay, this is truth for us and for our nation and our state. Okay? So this 117th Congress first session, House Resolution 279, this is this is first of all acknowledging that the United States Supreme Court's decisions in the insular cases and the territorial incorporation doctrine are contrary to the text and history of the United States Constitution. And then they start talking about racial views and stereotypes from the era of Plessy versus Ferguson. And Plessy versus Ferguson may be familiar to you because it is prominently featured on our judicial proclamations that we put on the public record when we place our sovereign appellation and name changes on the public record. The name change document is a document that says that the United States Corporation Company is, and their capitalism is not, that has nothing to do with us and what we call ourselves, our appellations, and even the all caps. The United States Corporation Company, the dead one, does not have the authority to speak about us at all. So whenever they're speaking, and they have documentation and stuff that they were previously putting on the record, you know, we've since muted all of that because we know who we are. But while they were doing things like that, we had to know that they do that it's an act. It's not truth. They don't have the authority nor the voice to speak for us or even about us. And that's another reason why when you turn on the quote unquote news, that you don't hear anything about the Moors. They don't have the authority to speak about us. It's our job and our responsibility to tell the whole earth who we are, who we really are. So this this document that we're looking at briefly here is I'm going to point out some things about capitalism because it's definitely a play on words. It shows that they have known all along that among the subjects there were some who knew that there were corporate actors among them who were attempting to usurp our sovereign authority, which it's impossible to usurp us. As long as we're speaking, no one can do that. They can give the appearance of usurping us, but then the moment we start speaking, they have to be quiet. And we've seen that. We see that. So let's take a look at this document. So it's not that long of a document, but this document is referring to, it was initially referring to American Samoa, the North Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands of the United States. That's what it says. We have to keep in mind that when you see something like this, that they're going to be going back and forth between the States United, which has the authority to speak about the land, and then the corporate United States Corporation Company, which is a court that does not have the authority to speak about the land, okay? It says here, whereas territories have been an important part of the United States since the beginning of our nation, and notice they put the word nation with a capital N, that means that what they're talking about is not real. Starting with the Northwest Territory in 1787, with Chief Justice John Marshall writing for the Supreme Court, not the United States Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court, in 1820 that, and they put the United States, they put it in quotes, that means it's a different one from this first one that they're talking about, since the beginning. It's a different one. It says the United States is the name given to our great republic, which is composed of states with a capital S and territories with a lowercase t. Okay, this particular statement, as with the rest of the statements in this document that we're reading, is a test to see if we know which ones should be capitalized and which ones should not be capitalized, so that this becomes a true statement, because right now it's not true. It's actually a hypothecated statement. Okay, but let's go ahead and read through it so that we can get straight to the part that we want to point out to you, where they know that the United States Corporation Company and its U.S. Constitution doesn't have anything to do with the Constitution and the territories, which is the land and the organic Constitution. It says, whereas today the United States has 5 populated territories: American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands of the United States, which together have a population of over 3.5 million residents, equal to the population of the 5 smallest states combined, more than 95% of whom are racial or ethnic minorities. Okay, whenever someone starts talking about racial and ethnic minorities, they are totally not talking about the land, because there's no such thing as race on the land. Either you are the original indigenous Moors or you're not. There's no race. Okay, race doesn't have anything to do. That word, just look that word up in an old dictionary, and you will see that race is not even a thing. A race is something that you run. That's not a people. Okay, people are not defined by race. People are, what is your ancestry? What is your bloodline? What is your birthright? That is how people are stated. So we know now, just in looking at this document, that the document is hypothecated, it's subrogated, it's not a real document, and that we have to fix things like this when we see it. Whereas Puerto Rico and Guam have now been a part of the United States since 1898, we know that's a lie, because the land has always been the land. We didn't have to adopt parts of the land. It's always been, our land earthwide has always been the land. So again, in looking at documents like this, we know that this is not true. That means that this United States is not the real United States. It's a fake one that was made up. And that's in the Holy Quran. That which has a beginning has an end. That which has no beginning has no end. There never was a time when we were not. There never was a time when the land was not. So those descendants of the Moors at American Samoa and Puerto Rico and Guam and North Mariana Islands and the Virgin Islands, those are our descendants, and they've always been, not just since 1898. Okay. It says here the Virgin American Samoa since 1900. Well, what Americans do you know that only came into existence in 1900? It's people that are not really indigenous and ancient. So now we know that there's some incorporation going on here. The Virgin Islands of the United States, that's not the real Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands are the Virgin Islands, period. They're not just the Virgin Islands of the United States. They're American Virgin Islands, period. Since 1917, and the same thing, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands since 1986. Whereas until the insular cases were decided in the early 1900s, the Supreme Court long recognized that Congress's power over the territories, while broad, were not absolute and unlimited. So now you know they're talking about a Congress that's not us. Our authority over all land, all natural resources, and all commerce is absolute and is unlimited. but rather here it says, but rather subject to such restrictions as are expressed in the Constitution. They didn't say the United States Constitution. It says the Constitution. That's the real Constitution. Okay? So that means that they're talking about different documents, but it doesn't look like they're talking about different documents. So we have to know the difference, and we have to know which Supreme Court it is that's speaking. Okay? Whereas, following the acquisition of Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, and other overseas territories in 1898, the Supreme Court's decisions in the insular cases broke from its prior precedent to establish a doctrine of territorial incorporation. That means that we're not talking about the land, we're talking about some incorporated stuff that was incorporated by some corporations, a corporation company. It says creating for the first time a distinction between so-called incorporated territories, where the United States Constitution, that's a different one, applies in full, and unincorporated territories where the Constitution applies only in part. I wanted to point this out specifically because here they're talking about two different constitutions. One of them is the United States Constitution, and then the other is the Constitution. Okay? Now, we know that this is hypothecation and subrogation and fraud and fakery, simply because the Constitution is the organic, ancient Constitution. It does not belong to a United States Corporation Company. This is the United States Corporation Company right here. They're putting this stuff out here so that the descendants of the Moors at these territories will be fooled into thinking that they don't have constitutional rights outside of what the United States Corporation Company says. Puerto Rico, the land, does not belong to the United States Corporation Company. It belongs to the people. The people determine that their own rights there, their constitutional rights. They are self-governing. So this hypothecation, it says where the United States Constitution applies, and they put in full in quotes because that means that it's fictitious. When they put things in quotes and, you know, brackets and things like that, that means it's fictitious, and that is not even real. So here beneath that it says, whereas the judgment of the court, not the Supreme Court, it says the court. So again, I'm pointing this out more so that we can continue to show and prove to one another that we all know how to read. Because here they're not talking about a Supreme Court, so they're not talking about some corporate Supreme Court. They're talking about the court. We are the court. Our court is all courts. We have sovereign jurisdiction over everything, whether it be district issues, whether it be municipal issues, whether it be consular issues, whether it be Article 3 issues. We have sovereign supreme authority over all. We are the court for original jurisdiction, not any subsequent inferior jurisdiction. So when we're looking at documents like this, we need to know how to read and make sure that we are looking at what's being said here. We know that whenever we're looking at documents like this, whenever they talk about the original indigenous sovereign courts, which they don't really have the authority to speak about, they start putting in things like race and, things that don't have anything to do with us, okay? It says, whereas the judgment of the court in Downs versus Bidwell, the most prominent of the insular cases, and insular and consular have the same root word, okay? Insular and consular. And there's a reason why they did not call these consular cases. Because whenever you're talking about race and things like that, that means that you're speaking in inferior, incompetent terms, and consular courts do not deal with inferior, incompetent terminology. Okay, we deal with competent jurisdiction. So instead of calling these consular cases, they said insular cases because it's some inferior court trying to speak about something that they have no authority over. Okay, but for those who identify as a race, you're admitting that some inferior court has authority over you. Either you are of the ancient original indigenous bloodline or you're not. Race is not a thing. It's not even real. It's an inferior, incompetent word when used to describe people. Races are for persons who are dead corporate persons. That's what race is all about. It says, whereas the judgment of the court in Downs v. Bidwell, the most prominent of the insular cases, was delivered by Justice Henry Billings Brown, the author of Plessy v. Ferguson's Doctrine of Separate but Equal, who wrote that America's newly acquired overseas, see, they switched from the ancient back to the corporate when they started saying something about America. America's newly acquired overseas territories. We, the true original indigenous America, don't have any newly acquired overseas anything. It all belonged to us since time immemorial. So knowing how to read more, this is what we're talking about here. It says, who wrote that America's newly acquired overseas territories were inhabited by alien races differing from us in religions, customs, and then they put 3 dots here. The words that they did not put there, I want to show you those words, because when they're writing this stuff down, they're going to remove things that don't need to be removed. So if you could, Morris, if you can, go on to Google and look this case up. Look up this particular congressional act, and you will see the words that they left out. Okay, to find the words that they left out, pull up Downs versus Bidwell, and you'll know why they left those words out. So let's pull that up really quickly and take a look at it. Just a moment. Let's take a look at that. Many times when you're pulling things like this up, they will leave out the things that are most telling about these types of cases. and they start trying to summarize the cases instead of just actually stating what the case really says. But fortunately for us, we know how to read. Here it is right here. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at the words that they left out here with this document. Just a moment. Just a moment. Apologies. Let me get to this. One moment. Okay. So now we have it here on the screen. Downs v. Bidwell. It says right here, if those possessions are inhabited by alien races differing from us in religion, customs, laws, methods of taxation, so now you're talking about money, they left that part out, and modes of thought, the administration of government and justice according to Anglo-Saxon principles may for a time be impossible, and the question at once arises whether large concessions ought not to be made for a time that ultimately our own theories may be carried out and the blessings of a free government under the Constitution extended to them. We decline to hold that there is anything in the Constitution to forbid such actions. So what they're saying here is that they don't even have the authority to govern these places. It is impossible to govern according to Anglo-Saxon principles. And again, if they're saying that this is America's newly acquired overseas territories, ancient America, there's no such thing. So now you know you're talking about unlawful occupiers and frauds pretending to be America. Okay? Talking about race, religion, customs, methods of taxation, and modes of thought, making it impossible to govern. This is an open admission that they cannot govern those who are original and indigenous to the land. Those who have been here since time immemorial are not newly acquired. Period. Alien race, that means that you are not original and indigenous to the land. You're alien. And if you separate the word alien, it is a lien. That's why our liens are so important. We needed to lien all aliens. That means call them who they are, or what they are rather, because they're not whose, they're what's. That's corpses and corporations. And no living, breathing being is a corpse or corporation. No matter what you look like, you're not a corpse or a corporation if you're living and breathing and created by the Creator. And we know who the Creator is. Creators have creations coming through the Stargate all the time, since time immemorial into perpetuity. So this case right here is an open admission that it is impossible for a corpse that is incorporating territories to govern those who have been here since time immemorial. This is an open admission of that. Downs v. Bidwell is an open admission. Whereas, it says here, whereas Justice Edward White, who in a separate three justice plurality, that means they're talking about something totally different now, developed the territorial incorporation doctrine. A doctrine is not the law is the law. A doctrine is a doctrine. It says this one, Justice Edward White, who in a separate three-justice plurality developed the territorial incorporation doctrine in Downs. In Downs, not Downs v. Bidwell, but in Downs, that's something different. The Downs doctrine is different from Downs v. Bidwell. Expressed concerns over the evils of admitting millions of inhabitants of unknown islands peopled with an uncivilized race who he believed would be absolutely unfit for citizenship. So you can see the hypothecation and the subrogation and the attempts to say that someone else is unfit for quote-unquote citizenship, when in reality, those foreign corpses and corporations who called themselves doing territorial incorporation are actually uncivilized and unfit for citizenship. We are nationals, we're not citizens on our own land. We are the land. We are all of that. We're the resource. We're the source of the resource. So it says additionally, and again, this absolutely unfit for citizenship is also stating that the original indigenous Moors were never meant to be citizens of a corpse or a corporation. There's a question in the chat, are we private? We are sovereign. The definition of the word private will answer that question. What does the word private mean? Because see, they got people thinking that the word private means nobody can see what you're doing. That's not what private means. That's not what that means. Private, in military terms, is the lowest ranking person in the military. That's what a private is. That's according to the definition of private. That's private as a noun. The question infers that you're using the word private as an adjective. We're not private in adjective form. We're sovereign. And sovereign is a noun also. So that again is further testament that no corpse, no corporation, no corporate territory can actually claim to govern the Moors. Okay? This is an open admission by corpses and corporations who attempted to incorporate territories, which is just impossible to do, that the Moors are not to be governed by frauds, newly acquired. You know, we're not new to this land. Never have been and never will be. There's no beginning and no end to us. So I wanted to make this clear. I want to point out just a couple of other things with this, and then we'll move on to our next, because this is important, Moors, when you're talking about where we are. We're not at any newly acquired anything. This is ancient. That's why we had to put the ancient constitutions and charters on the public record, so that everyone knows where everything and everyone is. Okay? So now, it says here, whereas 4 justices dissented in Downs, with Chief Justice Melvin Fuller commenting that great stress is thrown upon the word incorporation, as if possessed of some occult meaning, and Justice John Marshall Harlan expressing that the idea of incorporation is enveloped in some mystery which I am unable to unravel. No justice, no real justice, because these are not real justices. No real justice would attempt to rule on anything that they are unable to unravel. The word incorporation in its original uncapitalized, indigenous, ancient meaning simply means a living body, a living body. And that's us saying, okay, let's create something living, a body that's living, and then we will call that body a part of us. Okay? We will call it a corpus sanctum. Okay? So now, it says here, where Justice Harlan, who penned the lone dissent to Plessy versus Ferguson, also wrote a series of powerful dissents to the insular cases, declaring in Downs that the idea that this country may acquire territories anywhere upon the earth by conquest or treaty and hold them as mere colonies or provinces, the people inhabiting them to enjoy only such rights as Congress chooses to accord to them, is wholly inconsistent with the spirit and genius as well as with the words of the Constitution. Okay? So what is this saying? It's saying that there is no place on earth that a corpse or a corporation can govern the people. No place whatsoever. At all. Just one moment. There it is in writing. Just one moment. Sometimes they go ahead and run out of here before I have a chance to delete them because they already know what's coming. Okay. So now, it says here, the idea that he said this country, now we know we're not a country, we're the land, may acquire territories anywhere upon the earth is wholly inconsistent with the spirit, the genius, as well as the words of the Constitution. There's your proof, Morse, that the United States Corporation Company knows that they do not have the authority to do any such madness, such as governing the people anywhere on earth. They cannot acquire land at all. They cannot, corporations cannot govern, period. They know that. They are aware of that. So now, just one moment. So now, I wanted to point that out because, again, they have always known this. This is nothing new. This is not new. It's not, you know, this is not new. So having said that, let me see, is there any other part of this? There is a couple of other things I want to point out with regard to this as well. But that's the part that I wanted you to see first and foremost, is that they've always known they don't have the authority to do anything that has to do with us. It says here, whereas the insular cases and the territorial incorporation doctrine have long received significant criticism from the Supreme Court and a broad range of jurists and legal scholars, whereas in 2008, the Supreme Court stated that the Constitution grants Congress and the President the power to acquire, dispose of, and govern territory, not the power to decide when and where its terms apply. Knowing that we are the Congress and we're the people, we have the authority to do all of this. It says, expressing further that over time, the ties between the United States and any of its unincorporated territories. Now notice they have here, the T is capitalized. That means they're talking about their stuff. May strengthen in ways that are of constitutional significance. This is how you know you're looking at a subrogated, hypothecated document. And then it says here, in 2020, the Supreme Court questioned the continued validity of the insular cases, indicating that the insular cases should not be further extended. What are they saying? They were saying that we can't keep this fraud going because the Moors are waking up. They know that this is fraud. They know that the United States Corporation Company does not have the authority to govern any land on earth, period. It says here, generally, and I'll say this, generally when you start seeing them backpedaling the foreign hypothecations, when you look back when they were speaking, and you see them start to backpedal, the next thing you will see after they start saying we probably shouldn't be doing this, they'll start to try and give rights to quote unquote citizens and try and equalize and say everyone's created equal. No, everyone's created equal. After all of this fraud's been going on. It says here, this one, who served on the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit from 1984 until his death in 2020, labeled the territorial incorporation doctrine, and it's not the law, it's a doctrine, of separate and unequal, writing that the insular cases represent classic Plessy versus Ferguson legal doctrine, and thought that should be eradicated from present-day constitutional reasoning because they run contrary to the most basic precept for which this nation stands, the equality before the law of all its citizens. Backpedaling. They're backpedaling. Okay. So you can. This is the end of this. For the most part, the end of this this writing here. They ultimately came up with a summary doctrine, because it's not a judgment, because they're not a real court. But it says here that one of them had called the insular cases territorial incorporation doctrine a doctrine of pure judicial invention. That means they just made some crap up with absolutely no basis in the Constitution. Not the United States Constitution, but the real Constitution, which that's correct. It has no basis. That's some fraud. They're admitting to the fraud. And it says here, and one that is contrary to all judicial precedent and territorial practice. This is another open admission that it's been all fraud that they've been doing where all land is concerned, not just these places, but all land. And then it says here, whereas legal scholars with a wide range of views have criticized the cases and the territorial doctrine, with prominent someone writing that there is nothing in the Constitution with a capital C that even intimates that express constitutional limitations on national power apply differently to different territories. They're saying national power. National power is the power of the Moors. We are the nation. They are a society. Yes, it's lowercase nation. That's on purpose. They know who the real authority is, but we just had to be able to know how to read this. Okay? Again, capitalism and us taking complete control of capitalism, of our capitalism, and not allowing anyone else to speak about us, for us, with us, or any of that. This is our capitalism. We speak for ourselves. Knowing that puts this kind of fraud in proper context. And when you start talking about national power and the Constitution and lawful real territories, then words like racism have nothing to do with it. And that's another reason why when you watch the fraudulent fake news and all of that, they're always talking about that's racist. They want you yelling racism. They want you to yell that word because it's an incompetent term. They want you to talk about being black because it's incompetent for Moors to even say that they're black. But if they can keep putting that in your face and getting you to say, hey, you know, whatever about that, then they can keep this type of fraud going. But we're going to end this fraud today by putting a document on the public record so that this stuff right here is not even a thing. And when they say, and let me just point this out about the word insular versus the word consular, when they use it. They did not use consular because they know that their courts don't have any authority over diversity of nationality. They also know that diversity of nationality has to do with from one Moorish state to another Moorish state. It doesn't have anything to do with citizens, United States citizens. It doesn't have anything to do with citizens. That is diversity of citizenship. Okay? And again, there's nothing wrong with diversity of citizenship. But when you're talking about the difference between a citizen and a sovereign, ancient, original, indigenous, national, now there's then no inferior court has the authority to speak. Only we can speak about those issues. The citizens get their rights from the Constitution that we wrote. The Constitution, not the United States Corporation Company Constitution, but the Constitution. And then it says here, and leading constitutional whatever, calling the insular cases central documents in the history of American racism. No such madness exists. Whereas the territorial incorporation doctrine established by the insular cases is still used to perpetuate the second-class treatment of Americans living in the territories, from the denial of citizenship to the denial of voting rights to the denial of equality in federal benefits and programs. And whereas the time has come to expressly reject the insular cases as both contrary to the Constitution's text and history and as incompatible with our nation's core values. Again, this is backpedaling because they already know. Now, this was again from 2020, because they know that the Moors are awake and governing. Our courts are awake and active and governing. We are the state. We are the real nation. And so instead of pushing this insular crap here, they're saying that they recognize that America's constitutional and democratic principles apply throughout their corporation, including both states and territories. They don't get to speak for the real states and the real territory. They don't even get to speak for the states united, which is who we are. We're the original United States. They are a newly, and they're not even new, they were never valid from the very beginning. It says that they acknowledge that the insular cases are contrary to the text and history of the Constitution. They acknowledge that the insular cases are relics of the racial views of an earlier era that have no place in our nation today. They're talking about them. Rejects the insular cases and their application to all present and future cases and controversies involving the application of a Constitution in United States territories. And that's the end of the document. Why are they backpedaling? They are backpedaling on what they have pushed this whole time, simply because they already know that our courts have the authority over anything that has to do with diversity. All land, all natural resources, and all commerce. And remember, Morris, what we've been saying is that there has to be agreement. There cannot be conflict on the land. So the inferior courts must say what we say. That's all they've been doing anyway. When we thought we were citizens, they were saying that. Okay? And now that we know who we are, they have to say what we say. They have to enforce what we say on the land. They can't say anything different, or else that's treason. It's treason. And they don't want to be charged with treason. They knew this was coming. They knew we would be standing and governing. They knew that. They don't want to be charged with treason. So now, let us take a look. Are there any questions or comments regarding that particular this particular document. Let me, I will put the meeting in just one moment. We are going to vote. I wanted to bring this up because we want to put on the public record, we want to make it clear that we are not connected with anything dead. Because remember, and we're going to go over it in just a minute, Universal Commercial Code 3-309, we want to make sure that we rebut anything dead, that we separate ourselves from anything dead, and we have done that. We've never been connected to anything dead. But we want to put it on the public record because, once again, it is written, it is written, it is written. We must state that which is who we are. No one else can do that. We have to do it. So what I would like to do is place before you, Morris, for your sovereign input, a 1-paragraph, it's actually 2 paragraphs, document. A couple of weeks ago, we took a look at and read through the Declaration of Independence that the actors put on the public record. And we want to rebut that. We know we've been independent. We're not doing it as if to say we're just newly independent. We've been independent from the dead the whole time. But I want to put this document before you, and I'll just read it. It has our regular court action language. It is the Independence Proclamation and Declaration, because we want to further make true, or and we're not really further making it true, it's been true all along. We want to further assert and make the law that, and publish the law that we are exactly who we say we are. We'll come to that in just a moment in the chat. Thank you for that. There's more than one definition for that as well, but we need to look at that one too, and we'll look at it when we get it when we get a moment to do so. So this document states, it says, "We the people do hereby declare and proclaim our sovereign independence from all presumed United States corporation companies, the dead one, the black one in brackets, entities, as it is at heaven and at earth. We do hereby state that we are sovereign, free, peaceful, and competent, and that we are the true heirs to all land, all natural resources, and all commerce, without the aid nor opinions of mankind, nor the presence of corpses, nor United States Corporation Company debt entities, their agents, principals, heirs, assigns, nor any derivatives thereof. All claims by said entities are ruled unlawful and therefore denied, abolished, and void. All such entities are hereby declared and proclaimed arrested off the land, lost at sea, and cannot be found. We proclaim and declare that we are the source for all resources and that all resources are our possessions and inheritance, according to Universal Commercial Code 3-309. By this proclamation and declaration, we have achieved and created the new heaven and the new earth according to the constitutions and charters for counties, cities, states, nations, governments, companies, and corporations, and all others that we have placed on the public record and will continue to place on the public record as created by us and no others. We hereby proclaim that we control our destiny and that no foreign nor distant entities exist on our land, nor can they be found herewith. We hereby proclaim and declare our eternal unity with one another of like, natural, ancient, original, indigenous sanguinity, bloodline, and birthright, without any others, as was the state at the first. We state and implement our independence to honor our foremothers and forefathers so that our days be long on our land. This we state, be, and do for our ancestors, ourselves, and our heirs, since time immemorial into perpetuity. So this is the document that I would like for us to discuss and then vote to put on the public record, because I'll say there's quite a few. First of all, our teachers have always stated that we need to rebut all fraud. Okay, and we have not, we hadn't really formally, now we have rebutted all fraud, but all law specific, and we needed to formally put on the public record a proper rebuttal to that thing that was doing business as the Declaration of Independence, because that was not really real. It wasn't really real because those that put that one on the record can't be independent. They can't be. In fact, they don't even really exist. But they know that. So we want to vote, or well, let's discuss it first, because there may be some of the language that you want to add, change, etc. But we still need to discuss the document and then agree together to put it, whether we're going to put it on the public record or not. Just one moment. Let me go to, just one moment, to the web controls. So you can *6 to unmute yourselves if you have anything that you want to state with regard to this document. Islam. And then we will take a vote on the document. And let me add, is there anyone who is opposed to the document as it is written here? That will probably shorten the deliberations on the document. Is there anyone who is opposed to, you please feel free to speak so that we can discuss whatever it is that that you feel is necessary. Is there anyone who's opposed to the document and rebutting the Declaration of Independence? Okay. So let's go ahead and take a vote to put the document on the public record. And whenever we do these votes, and we agree that this goes on the public record, I always take the time to print it out, autograph it, and I send it to everywhere. I send it to DC, even though there's no one there, to that other DC. We know that no one's there, but I send it anyway just to notify the custodians that might be there, the ancestors, and it's already been made very clear to me that no one is there. But I also notify, I put it on the public record on social media, and then I also notify any other, those that the custodians in the office of the recorders, the custodians in the office of sheriffs, the custodians in the office of the inferior courts. I notify all of them of the documents that we put on the public record. And I would encourage you to do the same. That's why we put the documents underneath these videos, so that we can, so that anyone who wants to print them off and format them and put them together and autograph them can do so. Okay. So we will go ahead and take a vote now then as to putting the document on the public record. All those in favor of the document going on the record, if you would please *6 to unmute and state your appellation and territory and your vote, and I'll make a note of the votes.
Islam, Angelica Yvette Dobbs Bay, Oaxaca, Swampo Mac territories, yay.
Islam.
Cahucia,
Rose L, California territory, yay.
Islam.
Islam, Brother Mutaz, right, Bay, Council Court, Morocco, at New York Republic, yay.
Islam.
Cahucia, Jehuti, by N, Will I Am Shu Il, Manhattan territory, yay.
Islam, thank you.
Tony L. Simone May in New Jersey Republic, yay.
Islam.
Islam. Akil Kanimbi Easley L, Philadelphia territory, yay.
Islam. Okay, there were 3 more speaking at once. If we could just have one of you one at a time, please. Go ahead, Nobility.
Asan El Brani Bay, New Jersey Republic, yay.
Islam.
Freeman, Maryland territory. Yes. Yay.
Islam. Malik Akil Bay, Illinois territory. Yay.
Justice Malik first, and then the other noble. Justice Malik.
Islam. Malik Akil Bay, Illinois territories, yay.
Islam. Go ahead, Nobility.
Marquel Bay.
Islam.
With Marquel Bay, Virginia territory.
Islam.
Tampa, Florida.
Islam.
Wine and Prince Bay, Canaan Land, yeah.
Silly Negro Bay, nay. Silly Negro Bay.
Just a moment. Go ahead, Nobility.
Islam. Cape Tumai Bay, North Carolina territory, yay.
Islam.
Islam, Georgia L, South Carolina territory, I vote yay.
Islam. Thank you.
Islam, Carolyn Wiggins Hill, yay.
Okay, I believe that was Justice Consu and Empress Caroline Linda Wiggins L. Both yay.
Islam.
It's Cape Tumai L. And Pittsburgh territory, yay.
Thank you, Nobility.
Islam. Green Bay L, Michigan territory, yay.
Islam.
Angela Bay, Ohio territory, yay.
Islam.
Amos Salah Hotep Bay, Washington State Republic territory, yay.
Islam.
I'm trying to figure this out.
Go ahead, Empress.
Islam. William Smith Bay, Mississippi territory, yay.
Islam. Islam. Go ahead.
Karima, Devenisha, LaShawn L. Bay, Virginia territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you.
Empress I am Lamage Bay, Alabama territory, yay.
Islam.
Islam,
Mm.
Musa Jube, Tennessee Territory. Vote yay.
Islam.
Vitali from Khalifa Territory. Yay.
Islam.
Denise L. Brown Bay, New Jersey Territory. Yay.
Islam.
There's a lot of New Jersey people.
Yes, Islam. 4, 5, 7, 8.
Islam, Ma'akru Haru, Ba'inchu Il, Manhattan Territory, yay.
Thank you, Empress. Islam. Okay. Now, is there any Islam?
Justice Cynthia Ann Bay, Khalifa Territory. Yay.
Islam. Thank you, Empress. Okay, is there anyone who is opposed to the document?
Empress, did you get the yays in the chat?
Let me make sure that I do. Just one moment. Thank you, Empress. I did not. I want to ensure that I do.
Islam.
Islam. Yes, Islam. Okay, I have them.
If you don't have the last appellation name of Bay, can we still vote?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, you're still sovereign.
Okay. Veronica Ronnie Lake, Territory, Ohio, yay.
Thank you, Empress. And yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Costin Barnshoe, L, Territory, Harlem. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, Empress. Yes, Islam. Are there any other votes? Okay. So we do have a unanimous vote on the Independence Proclamation and Declaration. And again, we know that we are independent. We've always been that. Independent from what? From death and from debt and from corpses, okay? And from fraudulent jurisdictions and from fraud. We're independent from that. And we want to go ahead and make it official and put it on the public record together in a unified manner. This is important because we need to continue to govern publicly. We need to continue competently, peacefully stating who we really are and rebut the fraud. Continue rebutting the fraud. That's so important because even as we move forward with regard to the property and things, we want to be sure that it is clear that that we're on our own land and that all that has to do with us is on our own land. All property, everything is on our own land. So now, Islam nobility.
All Captain Ra, Ba'inchu L, Manhattan Territory, yay.
Oh, thank you, Islam. Okay, thank you for that, nobility. Now, the reason why this is important too is this next step that we're taking with regard to property. On our last call, we brought forth I will just state for the record that the document is approved by the Congress and also by the government and by the people. We are all one. We are all of those. We have all of that authority. So on our last call, we showed where there was a purchase order done by a sleeping moor, and we know that even when it's sleeping moors that are doing things, we still have to do it ourselves, okay? They're asleep. Yes, they're moors, but they're working in a corporate capacity that is not a lawful capacity, okay? Because lawful capacities work with full disclosure as to who's who. The parties are always properly identified, okay? And that's what makes any corporate job fraud unless we know who's who. All moors on all jobs must be themselves in order for that position to be a lawful position, because that's actually stating who really is the heir to the commerce, who has the authority on the job. So I'm putting a link in the chat, and we'll put this link under this video on YouTube, because this link, this that we're going to look at right now, is the next steps in the claiming of property. In the last call, on the last call, we showed how we had gotten the purchase order, and the purchase order is not valid, and it's not a contract because, number one, we didn't sign it. Number two, we didn't generate that purchase order. Someone else did. So now we have to do our part. So during the last call, we showed where we generated a sovereign affidavit with regard to a command to confiscate that which is already ours. So now we're going to go through the steps that it takes, because see, we showed where the custodians in the office of sheriff only do what the sheriff tells them to do. Who's the sheriff? The sheriff is the Moors. There are no sheriffs on this land but us. None. I don't care what uniform they have on. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they look like. There are no sheriffs on this land but the Moors, who know they're Moors and who know treaty law and who know constitutional law. So there are custodians in the office of sheriff, okay? And those custodians in the office of sheriff must also know that they are custodians only, and that the authority for the sheriff's office is ours. It's our authority, and we are the ones who give the commands with regard to what sheriffs are, what custodians in the office of sheriff are to do. We give commands from that office, okay? But that goes for any office on our land. So now we looked at Universal Commercial Code 3-309, which is entitled Enforcement of Lost, Destroyed, or Stolen Instrument. And it starts out stating that a person not in possession of an instrument is entitled to enforce the instrument if, and then we skip all the way down here to the part that is applicable. Number 2 says the loss of possession was not the result of a transfer by the person or a lawful seizure. And part 3 says the person cannot reasonably obtain possession of the instrument because the instrument was destroyed, its whereabouts cannot be determined, or it is in the wrongful possession of an unknown person or a person that cannot be found or is not amenable to service of process. So we also pointed out that this Universal Commercial Code is what the letter of it is what the corpses and corporations were using to say that the heirs, we the heirs, are lost at sea. We can't be found. They can't serve us with any type of notification, which they cannot. Okay? They cannot serve us directly. We're not in the same jurisdiction. Okay? We are the sovereign jurisdiction. They are a corporate jurisdiction. Okay? So we have put the QV Trust in its proper place by publishing our own from our own sovereign state, and then saying that those who were previously, those corpses and corporations that were previously claiming property, they don't exist on this land, so they cannot be found. Which means that they are not amenable to service of process, so we just put it on the public record. We say that they can't be found because they can't, they're lost at sea. And so now what do we do in terms of collecting on a judgment? So what I did was I copied and pasted this information from this website, and we can clean the information up as we go. But this is the basic steps to take once more you have done those first 6 original things that need to be done, which is declare your nationality, so the name change in judicial proclamation, stating who you really are, a lien on the social security number and the nom de jure war name, because we're not at war with anyone on our land, okay? The war was on paper by corpses. We're not at war. We don't exist on their paper, okay? Because that's their paper, not ours. We don't want their paper because we have our own documents and affidavits that state who we are. So anything that is received that you see, Moors, that you didn't generate doesn't have anything to do with you. You must generate that which is yours. That's the only way that you can collect a judgment. Is the judgment comes from a sovereign original indigenous court, which is you. That's why we put the documents on the public record. And then you enforce your own judgment. And we all do that together. So, again, name change in judicial proclamation. A lien on the nom de jure war name and the social security number. A termination of all corporate contracts. That's number 3. And a termination of all corporate contracts is the individual version of a declaration, of an independence declaration like the one that we just did. Okay? So we must do that on an individual basis where each of the sovereigns do that, and then we do it together where we say, no, we're not a part of that. We are who we state we are. So that's number 3, is the termination of all corporate contracts. Number 4 is going to be a lien on the United States Corporation Company, the dead one. That's going to cover all of everyone, everything and everyone that was fraudulently claiming to be us or fraudulently claiming to own property. And then that's the 4th document. The 5th document is going to be a proclamation of trust, just stating on the public record that you have a trust, a sovereign original indigenous trust. And then number 6 is the fiduciary document. The fiduciary document states that you have the authority to govern your all caps and any other all caps, names, letters, signatures, whatever. Anything that you produce on your affidavit, you govern it. Okay? And more, anything that you see on an affidavit by anyone or on paper by anyone, you actually have to agree with it in order for it to be valid, even about you. If someone does a document and they say, you know, I just wanted to do this, I wanted to give you this card. Let's just say it's a card, a happy born day card, happy solar return, whatever it is. In order for that card to be valid, I have to agree that, oh, this is beautiful, thank you very much, which I would do that. Because in order for the Pauline that's on the card to apply to me, I have to agree that, yes, this is beautiful. It applies to me. I accept the energy. Okay? That especially goes for corpses and corporations and fake courts and fake policy enforcers and all of that. They cannot speak about us unless we look at the paper and say, yes, that's me. And it's not, and we are not even that on the paper. We just say that applies to us, to our person that we are the heirs to. Okay? Aside from that, are there any questions about that? Because I believe there's a couple of lines that are open. Go ahead, Nobility. Okay. So now, how do you collect on a judgment? This is taken straight from that website. So we're going to clean it up as we go through it. We won't read all the way through this. That's why we put the link there so that you can read through it. And then more you can pull from this, because keeping in mind that you are both the sheriff and the creditor and the plaintiff, but it has to be the plaintiff from your court. You have to put that on your documentation. So it talks about here, just as an opener, it says if you win a lawsuit for money, you will get a copy of the court's judgment stating the amount of money the losing party must pay to you. The losing party is called the judgment debtor or defendant, and you, the winner, are called the judgment creditor or plaintiff. More, no one has the authority to call you a debtor or a creditor but you. That's why all of our documentations and affidavits are court actions, because we still must each and every time state who we are. If you get debt instruments from someone doing business as the IRS, it's still not you until you start talking back to them as if that's you. But if you get something and you rebut it, then that's not you. But we must rebut it and rebut it competently. That's what those 6 documents that we just described do. They say we're the fiduciary for any all caps, and our all caps does not owe anything to anyone. Our all caps is not a debtor. Our all caps is a creditor. And here's the thing, this 3-309 in the Universal Commercial Codes, it also states, and not in 3-309, but in one of the other Universal Commercial Codes, it also states that if, for example, someone says you owe something, and again, they can't say it, you have to agree that they're talking about you. If you agree that they're talking about you and you give them delarium and they don't accept delarium, then I believe it's 3-304 says that a discharge of that debt must occur because they've created some debt. They put a debt on paper and they said, this is you and you owe this. If you say, no, that's not me, this is me. I'm me. I'm the fiduciary for all caps. And I say that if there is a debt and my all caps owes a debt, then my all caps, because of its nature, because it is a naturalized all caps name and not a fraud, we're nationals. We are nationalized in all lowercase letters and even in capitis diminutio minima. And then the all caps, because of the nature of all capital letters of corporations and companies, it's naturalized as an instrument that we use. It's not us, it's a person. That person, if that person owes anything to anyone, it is paid according to its fiduciary. Because the fiduciary is the trustee for the estate. And the fiduciary says that either you accept delarium or you discharge the debt. Period. Which means If someone says, well, we can't do either one of those, it's got to be fiat, then guess what they're saying? They're saying that they don't exist on the land. And then 3-309 is the result of that. If they're claiming that you owe a debt on a conveyance, if you say the conveyance is on the land, and they're saying, well, no, you owe fiat on it, they're saying not that the conveyance isn't on the land, but that they're not on the land, that they only exist on paper. So you send a larium and you say, and you quote 3-309. And you say, I, as the sheriff, am taking control and possession of this instrument, which is a conveyance. But again, Morris, the reason we put this link here is so that you can see how to do that. Read through these steps, because it's talking about the steps that you take. Okay? It's talking about the steps that you take, that you can take in order to state who you are properly. Be sure as you're going through these steps that you pull out anything corporate and know that you are the sheriff. You're not only the sheriff, you're the court, you're the creditor, you're the plaintiff, and any debtors are debtors on the land, not some missing debtor out there lost at sea who's wanting fiat. Fiat is a lost at sea instrument. United States Federal Reserve debt notes. Federal Reserve debt notes is a lost at sea instrument. You can't negotiate out there lost at sea. That's why everyone thought they were so in debt, because they were claiming to be lost at sea. So it says here, if the judgment debtor does not pay, you are entitled as the sheriff. Now this is where we start cleaning this up. To seize the judgment debtor's property. We know debtors can't even own anything. They can't. Only the creditor owns things. It says the seizing of property by you, Morris, the sheriff, is called a levy. Once you, Morris, the sheriff, has levied the property, a levy is a lien. So that's why we do the liens the way we do them. The sheriff will then advertise and sell it and pay you out of the money the sheriff receives from the sale if the sale brings enough money to pay all concerned. This process is called an execution. There are a number of steps you must take. Now, we wouldn't sell the things, we would just keep them. But you can do this, and this is where the sovereign exchange on the public record takes place, Morris. You can still advertise it for sale and then you buy it. All you're doing is using lawful delarium to do that. And that's where we have said that a proper accounting of the property that's on our land must be done on the public record. So with regard to the white, what was that thing? Conveyance. The white conveyance from the previous call where we received, where there was a purchase order printed up. And then we did our own purchase order. Now we have to actually sell it to our all caps. We have to sell it to our all caps. So all we're doing is putting a proper purchase on the public record using lawful money. Then we have to create the title. Then we have to create and show that there was a lien on that item. A sheriff's lien. Morris, you're the sheriff. Do you see where we're going with this? Do you see how this is supposed to work with regard to everything on the land? We must give proper account of all property on our land. We can't just carry claim things. We have, and say, oh, well, we claimed it, therefore it's ours. No, we have to actually competently show ownership and heirship at the same time. Okay? Are there any questions thus far about what we've stated and what you can read about getting this done? Now, also, it goes through, I think, about 6 steps. Yeah, 6 steps. on this process. The first step, and I'll just summarize the steps. The execution of it is when you show that a proper exchange, a lawful proper exchange. See, when you use delarium or gold or silver, or, you know, that means that you are making sure that whatever it is that you are doing the exchange on and that you're claiming is done in the proper jurisdiction. Using fiat or is using Federal Reserve debt notes, that means that you're using the military script of the fakes and the frauds and the dead. And that is a contract. You don't want to contract with them. Okay, everything on our land is ours. We have to make sure we bring it onto the land the same way we did ourselves. You know, we know that we never left the land, but we had to properly state that by declaring our nationality and then putting constitutions and charters and all of that on the public record so that we locate ourselves. When they talk about, and this is something that I keep hearing, a word that I keep hearing them talk about geopolitical turmoil. That's what the corporates talk about, geopolitical issues. Well, geo means place. It means location. It means location. That's what geography is, location. The word geo means locate. Where are you? We cannot claim things in a dead jurisdiction using more science. We have to tell everyone where everything is. The conveyance is not at Federal Way, Washington, United States Corporation Company. That's not where that property is. It's at Federal Way, Washington, North America. Or you can say Northwest Amexem. You can say Turtle Island. You can say Ancient Morocco. I like Ancient Morocco myself. That's where the property is. It's not where they say it is, because that doesn't exist. It's where we say it is. Just like we are where we say we are. We have to naturalize all of the property by putting the documentation on the public record in much the same manner that we nationalized or proclaimed our nationality. So the process, yes, nobility.
Yes, I was wondering. That's the first time I heard that, the term being able to put a lien on a vehicle. How exactly you go about putting a lien on? I mean, if you come across a vehicle, you get is the information about the vehicle and all you have to put on your affidavit or something?
Yes. So you have to, in order to lien a conveyance, what you want to do is first, one of the first 6 documents is a lien on the United States Corporation Company, because that's the quote-unquote master of all of those that were doing business as dealerships and auto manufacturers, car makers, car dealerships, etc. A lien on the United States Corporation Company, and then let's say if it's a Toyota, you want to lien the corporation doing business as Toyota because they're not Toyota, you're Toyota. Because everything that has, every brick, every piece of material comes from your vast estate. So everything originated at ancient Morocco with you. They can't make anything, even if it's genetically modified, they can't make any of that stuff because all of that stuff is still on our estate. Right. So again, that's 2 liens. Oh, it's either 2 liens or you can put them both on the same lien. You want to lien the manufacturer. You want to lien the one doing business, the Secretary of State. because they are the ones that were, those corpses that were doing business as Secretary of State were claiming all property, all quote unquote abandoned property. Well, they're not the Secretary of State, you are. So you want to lien them. Then you want to lien an insurance, those that were doing business as insurance companies. You want to just pick one and lien it because you're going to notify them. Okay? And then what you want to do is you want to add to your lien the VIN number, the year, make, and model for that specific conveyance. And the reason that you lien the VIN number is because each letter and number in that alphanumeric representation is a contract of some kind. It's pointing to something. It's pointing to a contract, whether it be of parts makers, whether it be those doing business as states, manufacturers, etc. It's pointing to fraud in that area. Because once you lien that one, then on your title, you're going to put the VIN number, but it's going to be in blue ink, and it's going to be issued by you and your sovereign state. Okay? Because we're the real state. They're not the state. We're the state. They're not. They're subjects and citizens. They're not the state. We're the state. We're the government. We actually are the lords of all property and all land and all commerce. So we have to do a levy or a lien. A levy is a tax, and so is a lien. Levy and lien are essentially the same. Okay? Does that answer the question, Nobility? You want to do a Universal Commercial Code 1 lien on Moorish government letterhead of the VIN number, the maker, those doing business as maker, those doing business as all of that. You want to lien all of that.
So how do you obtain the VIN number? I wouldn't be able to find that like on Google or nothing. I have to go and inspect the vehicle itself. Huh?
Yes. And you want to do, you want to look at it and get the numbers on it and everything. You want to do that.
Correct.
Yeah. Islam.
Islam, Empress Light. This is Justice Malik Kilbay. I had a question about the not tax. Now, RAA 222141 says that we're not taxed. Well, for somebody to charge us for anything we get, wouldn't that be a tax? I mean, a tax is any sort of duty, wouldn't it be? I mean, something like that. Yes. Now listen carefully about the tax piece. That's why we don't use fiat. So when you write up when you go to execute the exchange, you're prepaying for the product. You're paying for it all at once because you're the Treasury. And in reality, that's not, we have the authority to tax our own exchange, okay, our own thing, but it has to come from our own money. That's just proper execution and proper documentation so that we know what's in our trust, how much is in our trust, what our trust is worth, the market value of the things. You know, we're the ones who put values on things. And then we say, okay, this is the exchange amount. But then you don't have to add anything to the exchange amount like a 10% state tax or anything like that. Okay? And then you're using Delarium to pay, so that you can show that the whole exchange took place on the land and none of it took place in a corpse, a dead corpse. So we can tax our own commerce. We're the heirs to the commerce. So there should be an exchange that takes place. We're the heirs to that.
Islam, I'd like to share something with the audience. I have a demonstration coming up tomorrow, and it's going to be, well, I've already scheduled my service appointment at the dealership. Service done to my conveyance. But I forwarded the documents, you know, for them to have to review before I get there. It's not going to be quite a week or two because I don't have that kind of time. However, once they service my vehicle and it's time to close out the exchange, I'm going to either provide them delirium or, I mean, you know, if they don't accept it, then they got to discharge it. So, I mean, I'm not going to really, I don't have much choice, and they don't have much choice either. I'm just going to do the demonstration and let the chips fall.
Yeah. Listen, we have to do that because there's no one, now again, you want to quote everything and look carefully at what we're stating here and state those things. 3-309 means that there are no debtors on our land. They can't make you a debtor when they're the ones in debt to you. But that has to be stated before you take the conveyance in. Okay? We let them know well in advance that we're coming and that these are the terms of the service.
Right. Islam. They sent me an email confirming that they've gotten my documents, you know, they've reviewed the documents. I don't know if they reviewed them, but they received them. So yes. That's all concerns.
They know already, nobility, that we are who we are. They also know that those who have been throwing around fiat can't keep doing that. They can't keep accepting it because it's not their stuff, it's our stuff. Every conveyance on every automobile, on every car lot, at every dealership belongs to the Moors. Every one of them. Every conveyance on the road belongs to the Moors. The roads belong to the Moors. The materials belong to the Moors. The services belong to the Moors. All of that. So our job as competent heirs is to let them know ahead of time that we're coming and that this is what we're doing and this is how it's going to be paid for, because we have prepaid already, okay? And our subjects know that. And it's our job to put that forth and do it because, you know, Justice Akil, Justice Malik, let me just say this about that. First of all, I honor that you're doing that. I have to do it too because we have to keep reminding them of where they are. You're not going to a dealership that only exists on paper. You're going to a dealership on your land. It's on your land. So the one suggestion, and I know you've done this already, but for any other Moors that are doing those types of demonstrations, make sure that the conveyance, that you have a allodial title that you created, that you've placed a lien on anyone attempting to add any type of a claim, maker, manufacturer, Secretary of State, any of that. Make sure that if you see a conveyance that has tags on it that are corporate tags, that you even lien the tag number, so that they know that no, that's property of the Moors too. Even corporate tags, where did they get the materials from to make a corporate tag? And with the fiduciary document, all letters and numbers, no matter what color, no matter where they are, if we say that's ours, it's ours. That's why a lien is so important. It's so that they cannot attach corporate codes and their corporate codes and statutes to what you're doing. So we all have to demonstrate at that level. Why? Because what about the Moors who don't have any fiat and who can't afford, you know, they don't have the fiat for that stuff. Why? We're not supposed to be rolling in fiat. That's why none of us are. But we are rolling in. We got plenty of real money.
Well,
and go ahead, Nobility.
Islam, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my first demonstration was successful, and I'm going there with the right frame of mind and the right spirit, and I feel good about it.
Of course.
It's going to be successful. As a matter of fact, if I'm there, I might even press the issue and try to acquire another vehicle while I'm there. I mean, why not? I got to test the water. I got to test the
You have every right to do that. You have every right. You have the status. You have the money, because it's real money.
That's right. So I ain't got nothing to be bashful about.
And look at these things that's been placed here, because the website that I got this information from, of course, it's a corrupted website. They all are, unless we do them. But this is from a quote-unquote sheriff website where they talk about how to do these things with property and things like that. And because they have to tell the truth, but we have to uncorrupt the truth because they don't have the authority to uncorrupt the truth. So look at this and then pull from it what you can with regard to your documentation. Justice Malik, we all have to do that, because what about the Moors who need things done who don't have the fiat to do that? And there's a reason why our ancestors have made sure that fiat stops flowing so freely. So we will stand up and demonstrate who we really are. The foreigners keep talking about, oh, we're going to a cashless society and the government's going to be able to tell people whether they can buy or sell and all of that. Well, what do they think was happening before? If they didn't want you to work, they would just deactivate the social or say you committed a crime. Not even talking about you. But they would say their courts committed a crime. Or shut off your banking thing saying that you owe a debt. Well, that system is done. It's a wrap. And now we're dealing with our own resources. So that's why this information, we're putting this information forth. It's so that you can see even what they're saying about proper claiming and of the things that have to do with our land. Okay? We just have to know who's who in these exchanges. Who is the State Department? That's the Moors. Who is the clerk, the court clerk? That's still us. You can do every role, every position in this process. We must do it. Our courts must speak. We have to show the manufacturer's certificate for origin. We can create that out of an affidavit. And then we go through these steps right here. Okay? Knowing that we're the sheriff and all we're doing is notifying the custodians in the office of sheriff. You can do all of this before you ever go to the custodians in the office of sheriff and hand them the documentation. You don't have to have a conversation with them. You just put the document on the counter where the clerk is, and then they have their commands and orders. Because in speaking with them, it is their job to try and usurp your authority by claiming to be the sheriff and claiming to be the clerk. So they're gonna try to do that with every conversation. That's why I don't talk to them. I hand them because my documents are from a court. That's a court command. You don't need to talk to me about a court command. You just follow the command, because the court command is going to properly identify the parties. We're the sheriff, period. So here it talks about the execution, and then it says, once you get your judgment, there are two things you should do. First, obtain a judgment lien, by recording a judgment lien certificate with the Department of State. Well, we don't do it that way. The way we do it is we do the lien, and then we notify the custodians in the Office of State Department or the custodians in the Office of Secretary for State. We're the Secretary of State. We just send a copy of the lien to the custodians in the Office of Secretary of State. And that can be Secretary of State for Washington, D.C., or it can be Secretary of State for the state that you have placed the Constitution on the public record and you say, this is where I am. That's why those constitutions are so important, because who is the state? You got to know who the state is. The state is whoever you state that the state is. Okay? And this right here tells you that liens must be done. But the liens have to be state liens. What is a state lien? Why is it that the state needs to know about this lien? It's because the state commands all property. That's why the state is involved. Who's the state? We are. It says then next you should obtain a certified copy of your final judgment. Moore's certified copy of your final judgment is your affidavit with your stamp and seal on it, your right red thumbprint, your autograph in red. And then if you have your embossers and your gold seals, then you do it that way. Then you notify the county, the custodians in the Office of County Court. I just drop the documents off or mail them, either one. Or just put them on the public record. Because, again, our custodians check the public record. Okay? So that's step one. You got two things going on in step one. We cover both bases by notifying properly and putting things on the public record. Islam, Empress.
I've been looking through the documents, but I'm trying to find the ancient charters and constitutions you referenced.
Okay. So let me show you where we got the ancient constitution for Washington, which is the land where we are here. And this will tell you where you can find the ancient charters and constitutions for your territory. I just went to Google and I put in Washington State Constitution. And it brought up Constitution of the State of Washington right here in PDF format. And it's at the leg.wa.gov. You can do that for wherever you are. Okay? So if it's Califia territory, then you would say, you would put in Constitution for California. And it will bring up the corporate one, and then what you do is when you click on that corporate constitution, what you do is you take the Constitution, you copy and paste it onto Moorish government letterhead, just like it is. And then you put it in blue ink, and then you go through it, okay? And you take out anything that says, for example, this says Constitution of the State of Washington. Mine is Washington Constitution. That's the title of my document. It is the Washington Constitution. Washington is the land. And it's a constitution for Washington. So it's the Washington Constitution. So if you're at New York, it'll be New York Constitution. Georgia is Georgia Constitution. We're talking about the land. We're not talking about any corporate states. Then I went through the document and I pulled out everywhere that I saw State of Washington. I just took the word State of out and just left it at Washington. And then I went through and just familiarized myself with the different parts of that Constitution. If you'll look here at this one, right here at number 2, it specifically talks about the supreme law of the land and political power, personal rights, Freedom of speech. We do affirmations, we Olson, so we changed that. It talks about a whole bunch of stuff that we need to be governing. We need to ensure that we govern. Habeas corpus, we know that has everything to do with, again, we had to tell them that we're at Washington, the land, in order for our habeas corpus to be effective. If we try to do a habeas corpus and we haven't stated properly where we are, that's kind of like war. Because then you're trying to do a habeas corpus on land that you've not properly stated where you are, so it causes, quote unquote, geopolitical turmoil. They don't exist. We know that. But we have to state who does exist and where we exist. Okay? So that's where you would find them. You would find whatever the corporate state is, because there's nothing new under the sun, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Because guess what? This original Constitution right here is an adaptation of the original that we did before this one. It says it right here. This Constitution was framed by a convention of 75 delegates chosen by the people of the territory of Washington. That's some hypothecation, kind of like what we read before. And then it says here, it talks about the president, and they have president in all lowercase letters, of the United States proclaimed the admission of the state of Washington into the Union. Well, ours is not a union document. It is the sovereign original indigenous document. Okay, then we can talk about a union when we first establish who the law is. We can't talk about a union if we haven't declared who we really are, or else folks will get confused about who the law is. Who's the law? And who's the subject? Who's the magistrate and who's the subject? Just like in the Holy Quran. Okay?
Islam, thank you. That's a good start.
Yes.
I was wondering, is there anyone else in the group from Alabama? Because allegedly it has like the longest constitution in the world. So it would be great if I could work with someone in this.
Let me say that Alabama territory has 2 constitutions that were placed on the record. One of them is 500 and something pages. The other one is much shorter. Just find the shorter one. It's older. The shorter one is older.
And you said it's placed on the record, meaning a war has already done that?
Meaning that you can go out onto the, let's go back to Google. You can Google it and find Alabama Constitution. There's one that was ratified and one that was not. Look here on the screen, Empress. Can you see do you see something that says Constitution of Alabama on the screen?
Yes, on Wikipedia.
Okay, now look, because let me just show you the difference. This one is Constitution of Alabama. The one below it is the Alabama Constitution. They're different. The one at the top was adopted in 1901. It says it right here. The Alabama Constitution was done in 1819. That's the one you want.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
That's
going to be the short one. Okay. And there are other places to find it too. You can just look down. Here it is right here. And this is actually a really good place to go. The Avalon Project, avalon.law.yale.edu. Yale University has all of this stuff on the public record in its original form. And all we need to do is just copy it And it's going to be a lot shorter, I can assure you. In fact, let me just click on this one. Yeah, this one is not 500 and something pages. This is it right here.
Okay.
You know? So all you need to do is copy and paste this onto Morse government letterhead, put it in red, in blue, because this is a commercial document, and then go through it and pull out. Look, see, it starts here, we the people of Alabama Territory. So you can just say, we the people of Alabama or at Alabama, having the right of admission into the general government. Okay, we the people at Alabama. Okay, and you know, this one is a lot shorter because it's the original one. And even our original indigenous constitution, the American Constitution, it's only 7 articles and 10 amendments, not the 20-something amendments that they said that it was. It was only originally 7 articles, and then they did 10 amendments later. So that is how you find the constitutions, and then because you are original and indigenous and ancient, when you put this constitution on the public record, that's what actually makes it the law for that territory. Because right now it's not the law unless you do it.
Okay, great.
You're the government.
Okay.
Islam,
Empress. I have a question. I think last week you were talking about how to find corporate signatures on the public record. I was having trouble finding some of the corporations, like CEOs' signatures. What is a good way to find their signatures to add to my my documents of you know, with the dead presidents and stuff? I mean, the dead corporations.
Their signatures don't need to be on your documents. They need to be on documents that you put out as the government, saying that they're not in any control of anything. And all I did was just Google and look for it. I tried to I was unsuccessful, but just keep trying. It'll come up. They'll come up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I have found more that when I'm looking for something, the ancestors generally have me to knock 3 times sometimes. I mean, these days it's not 3 times, but initially it was 3 times, where I'll Google it and nothing comes up, or something similar comes up, but not exactly what I'm looking for. And then I'll Google it again and make sure I Google it in all lowercase letters, or Google it in all uppercase letters, and then it will come up, whatever it is that I'm looking for. Okay? And then sometimes, Morris, and let me just make sure I put this part out there. Sometimes when I'm going out there to look for something, if it's not time for me to have that information because the ancestors want to show me something additional about it, it won't come up at all until it's time for it to come up. Nothing that I see out there online today was out there available for me to see 4 years ago. None of the, I mean, you know, and a lot of more can relate to that, where when you first woke up and you were looking for things, you couldn't hardly find any of the stuff that you were looking for. I couldn't hardly find that much information on Moorish science, period.
Islam.
But these days, it's a lot different from that. Islam, Empress.
I was affirming, Empress.
Oh, yes. Yes, these days when you Google Moorish science, all kinds of stuff comes up. All kinds of beautiful information. And then, you know, there's some corpses, you know, court gesture information that comes up too. But we got so much more reliable sources out there today than we did 4 and 5 years ago. And now even the corporates, not the corpus, but the custodians that are in the office of or the subjects are putting information out there that agrees with what we have placed on the public record. But they couldn't do that until we spoke it. Okay, so now you see number 1 says to obtain a judgment. All that is to publish your own judgment and notify, give proper notification. And then it says obtain a certified copy of your final judgment for recording with the clerk of court in the county where the real property is located. Real property is not located in a corporate county. That is an oxymoron if I've ever seen one. That's why the county charters are so important. When you're talking about property, Morris, once you put that county charter and the Constitution for your sovereign state on the public record, then you can talk about where everything is. Okay? Then things will start popping up in your searches. Once you put that on the public record, the ancestors always elevate the information and give you information for what's next. Okay? So, you know, even with regard to the conveyances, the dealership must be located on the land. It can't be floating around lost at sea and you're trying to get something, you know, from a place that's lost at sea. No, you have to put it on your land. And everything originates from your sovereign state. Okay? This is here for a reason. Again, I took this verbatim from the link that I put in the chat, which is a quote-unquote sheriff's website. And they're saying that you must know where everything really is. That's a hint to the Moors.
Islam.
Islam.
You put that somewhere on this screen, because for whatever reason I cannot get the chat. I don't see the chat.
Okay. This is just one moment. Let me go back to that. Okay, here it is right here on the screen. This is the link to the website where this information came from.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Empress. So that way you can go and look at what's being stated there. I did not uncorrupt the information because I wanted us to talk about it, because we all need to know how to uncorrupt the information. Okay? How to make it so that the information is not, you know, that all the corporate madness is taken out of the information. Okay? So now, it's not their job more to tell us that we need to have a constitution and a charter on the public record. It's not their job. We're supposed to know that, because that's the only place where geographically there's no war. We have, because in reality that whole corporate structure is the equivalent of the scripture in the Biblioheliotheque that says the earth was without form and void. That corporate structure is without form. That's why we don't fill out their forms, because they're telling you there that matches that scripture. It's without form and it is void. So we actually, it's almost like we're creating new heaven and new earth by putting the constitutions on the tree. It's like nothing was there until we state that it's there. Because that's actually true. Okay? So now, step 2 says, in order to have the sheriff levy upon, seize the judgment debtor's property, and it's, again, it's not their property, it's your property to begin with. You must first locate the property. They say it again in the second step. Again, more, they're telling us what we need to do. It says the sheriff will not do this for you. This is verbatim from that website, verbatim. The sheriff can't tell you where it is because you're the sheriff. You have to say where it is. Remember that there are many kinds of property the sheriff can seize in your behalf. And again, sheriffs, those that we thought were sheriffs before, they don't have the authority to seize anything. That's why we're the sheriff. Land and buildings are called real property. Anyone who was trying to grab some property that was not on the land can't. That's why you can't grab it. You can't get the property. Movable things like cars, boats, furniture, and jewelry are called personal property. Well, in propria persona sui juris is how we do things. So we have to state that these things are on the land. And that as we're doing them, we must be in propria persona sui juris. It says there are some kinds of property the sheriff cannot levy upon. The main kind of property the sheriff cannot seize is a person's home. Okay, why is that the case? That is the case because all domiciles are the property of the title holder. The title holder. Only the state can seize the home. The state. Let's prove that. And again, I took this straight from their thing. We're uncorrupting as we go. It says a person's homestead is exempt from execution. Execution is that first part of the process. Okay. Up here, execution is, they tell you what it is right here in this right here. The process of execution is advertising and selling. It's the exchange mechanism. It's showing that this domicile that you say is worth $500,000 has to be sold and the money paid, etc. Okay. They're saying that the sheriff cannot do that. They can't seize a person's home. That's because all property, the state is claiming the property. And we must be the state, our proper selves, which means state on the public record who we are. It says the judgment debtor may, again, a person's homestead is exempt from execution. The person and the judgment debtor are two different categories of party to a process. Debtors do not own homes. They don't own homesteads. They don't own land. They don't own buildings, cars, boats, furniture, jewelry, nothing. Debtors don't own any of that. That is why courts identify people as debtors and then take stuff, because they already know debtors don't own anything. It says the judgment debtor may also select personal property worth up to $1,000 and one motor vehicle worth up to $1,000 as exempt property. Now, that's in a corporate court. In our courts, debtors they can't claim anything. Now, the reason why this little piece is in here is because they're talking about fiat. And in the fiat world, they're saying, okay, since this is fiat world, we have to make room for us so that when the Moors take everything back, they will be merciful and say we could at least have, not own, not be the heirs to, but select something worth up to $1,000, etc. Okay? Because again, it says the judgment debtor may also select. Select means you claimed it, but somebody has to approve that. The real owners must approve that. It says only people have exemptions, not persons, people. Again, Morris, listen, this is all about status. Property, execution, claiming, they're telling you it's all about status. That's why the red documents were so important. Any claims to anything starts first with who's the real owner, who's the real heir, who is it really? So they're telling you here that not even, they're saying the same thing we said, debtors don't own anything. Debtors cannot claim anything. Only people have exemptions, not persons. It says if your judgment is against a corporation or a partnership, the sheriff can seize all the property in the name of the corporation or partnership. They're talking about corporations, that means all caps. Or a partnership is the all caps that's a ward of the state doing business as all caps. And it's really not even a ward of the state, it's a state instrument in the living state that is using an all caps as an instrument. That's what a partnership is. A partnership, let me give you an example. I'll put an example of a partnership on the screen. Because even when people apply for partnerships, it would be, this is what a partnership looks like. That's what a partnership looks like.
Excuse me, I lost audio. Did anybody else lose audio?
Can you all hear me?
Islam.
Islam, yes.
Okay, they can hear Empress. Okay. Pauline Ritchie doing business as Pauline Ritchie Company, that's a partnership. It's a public-private partnership. Again, in order for these to even be valid, this has to be the start of it, having any rights. Okay? There has to be an all lowercase that started this, because if there's not an all lowercase that starts all of this, then all rights claimed by these is not valid. It's not valid. But we see that. We see that. That's why corporations are being taxed and told that if people don't wear masks, you get shut down and this, that, and the third, because that means that somebody somewhere was on their documentation is saying, we're this, so we can tell these what to do, because these are derivatives and agents and principles of this, the all lowercase. And see, when we were in our fleet moors, we thought we just had this right here, in capitis diminutio minima. We said, we always wrote that way. And sure enough, we didn't have any rights. That, you know, we had nothing. And then we were sitting up wondering, how is it that these fake policy enforcers can tell us what to do? Well, they weren't even talking to us, and they were pretending to be the sovereign. They were pretending to be the sovereign who created these, the ward of the state and the corporation. That is why putting things in all lowercase letters first is important. So important. Because then you create the agents and principles and derivatives thereof, and you tell them what to do. When we lien General Motors and General Electric and Walmart and all of that, we lien the corpses, And then on our fiduciary document, we put Walmart in all lowercase letters, and then we put it in capitis diminutio minima and in capitis diminutio maxima. That means we're all of those. We get to say what happens with merchandise and things like that. And then we have a constitution and a charter on the public record that says that Walmart, our Walmart, is located on our land. That means all the products are located on our land. Well, what money are we using? Oh, liens and delarium and gold and silver. See, we will see more of that manifesting now because there's more of us who know that dynamic right there. It couldn't be just one of us knowing the dynamic of capitalism. There has to be many more of us, and now there are. We have reached what some would call critical mass, and that's having enough of us to know something for us to fully enforce it. And again, you know, we as sovereigns can enforce whatever with regard to us, but it's always better to have, our strength is in our numbers. Our strength is in our numbers. And now we have that. We have enough Moors who know about capitalism and about putting things in all lowercase letters first, then you can put everything else up there. That's why. So now, it says a person's homestead is exempt from execution. The judgment debtor may also, see, I love the way they write this because they will turn around and say, and make the person think they have some rights. It says a person's homestead is exempt from execution, and then they turn right around and say, oh, but only people have exemptions. Only people have those, not persons. It says if your judgment is against a corporation, which is a person, or a partnership, then the sheriff can seize all the property in the name of the corporation or partnership. So we would just put it in capitis diminutio maxima and say, okay, custodian in the office of sheriff, go seize that whatever it is, because it's in all capital letters. Our all capital letters. That's why when we do our court actions, we automatically put everything in all caps. The same way that the frauds did. We learned that from them, and then we found the law that supports that. So then now you're on to step 3. Once you have located the property, as if you didn't know where it was, that means put that Constitution and the Charter on the public record, and then with each document that you send out, you send a copy of the Constitution and the Charter with it, saying this is located at Washington, not the state of Washington, corporation. It's located at Washington. Once you've located the property, take a copy of your judgment to the clerk of court. You're the clerk of court, know that, notify the custodians in the office of clerk of court that issue the judgment and ask for a document called a writ of execution. You are to provide the writ of execution, Moors. And it's really called an execution writ. You are to provide that. That's your job. Okay? Because again, you're the court. You put that on court. Now, and more, the different responsibilities that we have in our commerce, you just put at the top of the paper who it is that's speaking. If it's our court speaking, then you put the court action language. It's a writ. It's a mandamus. It's all of that. At the top of my documents when I'm enforcing something like this, right up here, I have no problem whatsoever putting quo warranto, mandamus, restitutio, writ for execution. And I'll put everything on that one document. And then the separate document will be a lien. But our court does all of this all at once. I have no problem doing that because we can. All of these are court actions. So we do all of our court actions at once. So now, a writ of execution. This writ directs the sheriff to see the custodian in the office of sheriff to seize property of the debtor or defendant, and we just call them defendants or debtors, either one, because again, when they said possession is 90% of the law or whatever, 10%, possession is 90% of the law. All they were saying is that, you know, a custodian can have something in their custody. It's theirs until you remove it from their custody. And it's not really theirs, but the proper owner has to identify it, because the proper heir and owner is the only one who can remove it. Okay, so this writ directs the sheriff to the custodian in the office of sheriff, and again, it's coming from us, the sheriff, to seize property of the judgment debtor defendant, which is subject to levy under your writ of execution. Then you deliver the writ to the custodians in the office of sheriff in the county in which the property is located. That's why you send the charter with this, and your fiduciary document and your state constitution with it. Does that seem like a lot of paperwork to send for one property? Yes, it is a lot of paperwork to send, so to speak. To me, it's not a lot, because once you do the Constitution, you don't have to keep doing it. You just print it out. Once you do the charter, you just print it out with each document. Once you do the fiduciary document, you just keep printing those 3 documents out, and then you do the liens on everything else. The liens, and create title, and do the sovereign exchange, which includes the title and the indemnis facier. The indemnis facier insures. It says you must also, and then once you lien an insurance company, you're gonna keep sending that out too, because the same insurance company that insures the property, the real property, can also insure the personal property. So you just pick one and notify the custodians in the office of whatever insurance company that there's a $100 million whatever indemnis facier that you have sent, you've crafted it, and your state sends it, and the state insures the properties. Okay. It says you must also give the sheriff written instructions called instructions for levy. Why didn't they say instructions of levy? Because they already know the language. That's the answer to that question. They know when they see things that say writ for execution versus writ of execution, that they have to do, the custodians have to do as commanded. It says these instructions specifically describe the property, real or personal, and tell the custodians in the office of sheriff where it is located. They keep putting emphasis on the location and the name of the property. We're telling you why. It says the sheriff, who's the sheriff? That's us, will require from you a cost deposit to pay the statutory sheriff's fees and cost of levy. Because we're the sheriff, we get to state, we just show that an exchange has taken place, that our sheriff's office has been paid, and then we notify the custodians in the office of sheriff that the cost and the statutory fees and everything have been paid in dolarium or gold-backed money, because sheriffs know about gold-backed money. It says you will get your deposit back if the execution is successful and the sheriff's sale brings enough to pay all costs. Again, you put the property a value on it, and then just accept that for value. Accept it for value. And these seem like it seems like you're having to do different steps. You are having to do different steps to properly claim that which is it's already yours. But we have to show competence. And once you do it right the first time, then everything else is going to be easy. It's going to be a piece of cake, Morris. We just need to competently execute this process. knowing who's who and what's what and where everything is. You must also give them the instructions for levy. These instructions specifically describe the property, real or personal, and tell the sheriff where it is located. It says they'll require a cost deposit. You are responsible for all costs of levy and sale if the sheriff's sale does not bring sufficient money to cover the cost. After the costs have been paid, your deposit will be returned to you. Again, you're the sheriff, so you're going to make sure that when you, in your sovereign personal capacity, buys it from you, the sovereign sheriff, that it's a good buy. Okay, that the exchange and putting the property in your trust works out very well for you. You could even put a little over and then deposit whatever you put over that amount that you in your personal sovereign capacity paid for that property. You can put that into your bank account, your sovereign bank account. Step 4 on personal property levies before the property can be sold, check the Department of State Internet website, and again, this is just a quote-unquote state website where they talk about liens and all of that being filed under the name of the judgment debtor. Well, our liens take priority over all other liens because there is no lien holder that has rights that supersede our rights. And in fact, all other liens are null and void because they originated not on the land, but on paper in a corporate state. That's why our liens are gold-backed liens. You must also check for creditors who have filed UCC security interest in the name of the judgment debtor. Creditors, look at this funny language. Creditors who have filed UCC security interest in the name of the debtor means that they're not creditors, they're debtors. If they can use the name of the judgment debtor, they're not a creditor, they're a debtor. That's why we go ahead and just lien all the fakes because they're already debtors. And then we say we're the creditor to that and we give it a proper name and proper, everything. Proper location, etc. You then give the sheriff, pursuant to chapters 55 and 56 of the Florida statutes, a signed affidavit in which you list the names, addresses, filing dates of everyone who has filed a judgment lien or UCC security interest. And again, the only one that counts is yours because it's lawful, it's gold back, and you're doing a gold back exchange. Okay. You can see here that if you're claiming anything, that affidavit is the way to do it. Not UCC forms, none of that stuff. The reason why we as the sheriff can confiscate things is because affidavits take precedence over UCC forms. So even if a Moore does a UCC affidavit, a UCC form, if you do a form in their system and someone comes along and does an affidavit, their affidavit is going to take precedence over your form. That's a level of competence there. They're telling you writs and affidavits. Writs and affidavits. When you're talking about claiming property and confiscating things, it's writs, affidavits, and judgment liens. Not lien forms, judgment liens. That is a judicial lien done by affidavit. Because see, even here, when it says a signed affidavit in which you list names, addresses, and filing dates of everyone who's filed a judgment lien or a UCC security interest, all you're doing is filing a lien by affidavit. You're saying my lien by affidavit takes precedence over all this other stuff. It says, do not confuse this affidavit with the creditor's affidavit. Okay? Who's the creditor and who's the sheriff? We are. This certification, which covers writs of execution, docketed and indexed, with the sheriff prior to October 1st, 2001. They're going back to October 1st, 2001. We're going back since time immemorial, which supersedes everything. That's why we use our letterhead. It says, although you're required to check for UCC security interest on record, the sheriff does not pay UCC security interest from the proceeds of the sale. Okay? We don't pay those because there's, again, this is affirmation of what I said about any other security interest filed in a state that's not a real state. We don't have to pay that because it's in fiat. We don't have to pay that. Our liens and our affidavits take precedence over all of that. We don't even have to list it because it's not valid in the first place. It says you must also notify all of these people of the time and place of the sale by certified mail prior to the first date of publication. They said notify these people. That means that if they're persons in a corporate state, you don't have to notify them. You notify people because people is the only one that really counts. These notices, sheriff's levy and sheriff's sale, will be sent to you by the sheriff for your compliance. The sheriff will ask for an affidavit of compliance of mailing in order to proceed with the sale. They can't do anything without an affidavit, and you're the sheriff. Step 5, once the notices have been sent by the levying judgment creditor, levying, taxing, judgment means court, creditor is the real creditor, and every time they use the word creditor here, they put it in all lowercase letters for a reason. It says the sheriff in a newspaper within your county, Morris. Your county is where you say it is. And it cannot be a fake corporate county or else you're at war because that doesn't exist. And that's why we put things on the public record, because within our sovereign counties where we properly advertise things, all we're doing is publishing it out on the public record. Okay. There's a little bit of noise coming from one of the lines. I think it's, okay. Just one moment. Let me get back to, okay. And we're just about done. We're just about at the end of this document. Number 6 is the last step. Okay. Step 5 says once the notices have been sent to the levying judgment creditor plaintiff, that means you've made copies of your own stuff. The sheriff in a newspaper within your county must properly advertise the sale. All you got to do is post it on the public record. And then you buy it with your delirium. The highest bidder for cash in hand pays the amount of their bid to the sheriff and becomes the owner of the property advertised and sold at sheriff's sale. Subject to taxes, prior recorded liens, and any other encumbrances that have been properly recorded against this property. Fiat stuff, when it comes to lawful money, is not proper recording of anything. Fiat sales, fiat liens, forms, exchanges, etc., none of that is proper recording because it's not lawful, it's not constitutional. It says the sheriff will pay out the money received from the sale in this order. And then they're talking about sheriff's fees and things like that, which we don't necessarily have to go into that because, again, you can read this. We put the link here. This is pretty much the end of the steps, but you want to continue to read. Okay? And then here, the final thing is going to be a writ of execution is issued from the court of issuance and sent to the sheriff where the property is located for levy process. If there is property in another county, also, when the first levy is completed and proceeds from the sale indicate a deficiency or a levy is unsuccessful, then a writ of execution must be removed from that sheriff's file by written request of the levying judgment creditor. So the creditor has all of the authority to move papers around and do things. And because we're the sheriff, we're not going to deny our own paper, our own documents. And then we just notify. Notify, notify, notify. Are there any questions about this process? It says, where do you find who has been holding insurance for property? The tax assessor will have, the tax assessor website will have that on there. And again, we're the tax assessor, but you can just go out there and look and see what the custodians have put on the website. You can also choose your own insurance and create an indemnis facier. And we've shown what indemnis faciers are. It's a $100,000 affidavit on moorishe government letterhead that says, we hereby indemnify anything that has to do with, and we name the property and the location of it. So, for example, my property is at Washington. It's not state of Washington. It's not Washington state according to the way corporates say it. It's Washington, the land at North America or ancient Morocco. And that's what will be stated on my indemnis facier about where this property is. And then I would notify the ones that were doing business as insurance companies. Okay. So look here. I want to show you this before we bring this call to this Congressional Assembly to an adjournment. It is the responsibility of the creditor to update the database of the Department of State with an amended judgment lien certificate. All they're saying is just notify, notify, notify. Notify those doing business as, not doing business, but custodians in the Office of Secretary for State, an Attorney General, etc. Just notify the proper custodians, okay? Are there any questions or comments about this process and how to properly, let's see, for the home, do I give the check? Let's see, 16 documents. Let's see, just one moment. For the home, do I give the check to the custodian or only list it as being in my account? You can, that's a good question. The question is, for the domicile, does she give the check to the custodian or only list it as being in my account? What you'll do is all of the documentation that you send, along with a copy of the check, you will just make copies of it and notify everyone and show that that check has been sent to the custodian in the Office of Realtor, because you're going to notify whoever it is, the custodians in the Office of Realtor if it's listed. If it's not, you'll notify the tax assessor that it's been done in Delarium, in real money, and that you as the tax assessor are notifying them so that they correct their records, but their records are not our records. Their records are their records. We're just notifying them that we have the proper records and our records supersede anything that they've done. Okay. So you can say that it was put into your personal trust account, or you can state that as the CEO of the realty company that you can type up a letter that says we received full payment from the all caps, your all caps, that you as the realtor received complete, full payment, prepayment for the domicile, and that it's been recorded as full payment. And that is where those signatures on the public record come from. The CEOs, okay, is us. So we can create documentation and state that, okay, a full payment has been received. Any of the banks, we can state that, full payment has been received and it's signed by Jamie Diamond, custodian in the Office of CEO. Sure can. Because again, all of this is taking place on the land. There are no debtors on this land that can send policy enforcers and talk about fraud and anything like that. They can't do that. Simply because if they could, they'd have done it by now and none of us would be nationalized. Because they would say, no, those names aren't yours, they're ours. Because that's what they were claiming before. But they don't own any letters, they don't own any numbers, they don't own any punctuation, they don't even own paper. We own all the paper. And that's what this Independence Proclamation is stating, is that they don't own anything and nothing that is being said by the dead applies to us. And in fact, the dead are lost at sea. And we're claiming everything. And we're just going to do that competently. So, Moors, you can be every party to the exchange that you need to be because you're sovereign. Because guess what? That's what they were doing when corpses were claiming to be the bank, the realtor, and the buyer and the seller. They were all the same. They were all the same.
Islam, that's truth because you didn't own it anyway.
They were only acting. That's it. They were only acting and pretending to be different when they are not. They're the same. So we can be the same. That's what sovereign is all about. They were claiming to be sovereign states when they're not. Claiming to be creditors when they're dealing in debt only. Some of their top quote-unquote capitalists say, oh, we love debt. We were just dealing in debt. We love debt. Robert Kiyosaki, the custodian in the office of, and them, they're capitalists in the debtor segment. So we just look at what they did and say, okay, they got that from us. Let's make sure that we do that in our proper state. And in our state, no courts can come into our state and say and start dictating things. One is in the grave and the other one is living. That's why they don't own signatures that are out on the public domain, because we put them in the Republic. So they don't own any autographs. That's why the autographs are out there in the public domain. And we have eminent dominion. With regard to the colors of the documents, when you're doing commerce, blue is the better color ink. When you're stating sovereign status and you're putting the law forth that everyone must abide by and must be under in terms of the subjects and the corpses and all of that, that's done in red. And that's why I was saying put the red documents on the public record first. That way everything after that you can do it in blue. And, you know, because that's commerce. We're just doing, after that we're doing all commerce, and we're saying this is all sovereign commerce being done by the gods, the titans, the merchants, the ancients, you know. But we have to put the red documents on there first. And then we can do blue and, you know, we can even do black. There are some Moors that are doing black ink, and they can do black ink. I put something on the screen here that I wanted you to see, because this is just an illustration of what happened. Back in ancient times is this first segment. In ancient times, we wrote in red first. That's why they called us the red men, because we used copper to write with. All Moors are the gods. And then we said, okay, we're going to start doing commerce with these natural resources, so we did things in blue. Then we did things in black ink, or as corpus sanctums, which is a living natural corporation or company. The blue is a living natural person when done by us. We must produce the documentation. We can't just have someone else produce it and we accept it. That's not how this works. We must craft the affidavit that states who we are. Okay? We were the first capitalists, merchants, and commercial titans. Then the fraudulent United States Corporation Company just looked at what we did and they said, okay, we're going to clone what they did. We're going to clone Pauline Denise Ritchie and call her a black corpse. Call it a black corpse. Because that's a it. When they created it's a it because they're it. Remember when we were little and we were playing games and someone would be it? They would be you would tag each other and say, oh, you're it. Okay, that actually was them attempting to get us to get used to being called it. So all they did was copy what we did and then say, okay, this black 14th Amendment black thing is property that we control. So then what did we do? We said, okay, we're going back to the ways of our ancient foremothers and forefathers, starting off by being the red men, putting everything in red and all lowercase letters, then in blue to do commerce and admiralty law because we're not lost at sea. And then if we wanted to go into corporate, the corporate setting that we create, not theirs, ours, because we don't need to be in anything that's created by corpses. That's what all of this work from home for now thing is all about. Is their corporate status does not exist anymore, it's ours, and now we're creating our own. And then it says we craft our own documents and speak by affidavit only. So this is how it happens. We did it first. They did fraudulent clone, copy, mimicking crap, 14th Amendment, and now we're saying, okay, let's go back to the ways of our foremothers and forefathers and create our own everything.
Islam, Empress, could you decrease the size on that so that
sure.
the diagram can be?
Yes. You're welcome. Let me just there. That's the whole thing. Okay. Again, the fraud looks similar, but is a dead zombie clone. Okay. So there's nothing new under the sun. All they did was copy. And all we're doing is saying, nope, we create what, and then we state what happens with us. No one else has the authority to do that. Where policy enforcers are concerned, all you have to do is not say anything to them. Don't speak to them. Because they're not talking to you. They're talking to their clone, their corpse. Fake corpse, they're talking to their clone. So all you have to do is send your documentation to state who you are. Oops. Are there any other questions? We are in it, we're not in it. Yeah, everything in commerce has to match. They don't become living subjects until we say, okay, we're alive and all rise and stand. That's the only way, because they can't make themselves living subjects. We actually have to do it, which we've done. Are there any other comments, questions, wisdom, input with regard to the things that we stated today on how to properly claim that which already belongs to us, but we must be competent to proclaim it? And does everyone understand why it's so important to put the constitutions and the county charters on the public record? If you have property that you're claiming, make sure that you take that county's charter and put it on your county chart and claim it, properly proclaim where it is, and put it on the public record. So for here, for example, the charter that I looked up was County of King Charter. Well, this is not the County of King. This is King County according to what we say. And then I sent it to the custodians in the office of King County Superior Court from their head magistrate, which is me, and the Moors. We have to do that because we're supposed to be governing these territories, and we are governing them. That's our job. We have to state where everything is. Okay. With that being said, are there any other comments or questions regarding the documentation? Islam, Empress.
So for those of us in Canada, the process would be practically the same?
Yes, absolutely. You all can do it doesn't matter where you are at Earth, you can do the same process, and it has to be honored. You know why? Because they were all using fiat that emanated from the Federal Reserve debt system.
Okay.
That's why the corporation company was able to go anywhere and just wreak havoc, because they know whose it is. It all belongs to one entity, and in this case for us, it's one sovereign living nation. We are the primogenitors to all others. You're just as much us as we are you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right then. Thank you.
UK Moors, same thing. Trinidad Moors, same thing. Guyana Moors, same thing. France Moors, Empress Frederica, and the consulate at France territory, same thing. All the same. Africa territory, same thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Islam is.
I have a question regarding a property that was gifted, but the corpse has paid taxes on it over a period of years and used it as a rental. So would I do the same process as far as the domicile?
Yes, you would. And if you can get any of those, there's some feedback coming from someone. Okay, yes, and if you can get any of those documents, if you can access any of the documents from the property and recreate them, that's going to assist you as well, Empress.
Okay, I have the quitclaim deed, and then at one time the corpse got a loan on it and paid it off, and so I have the reconveyance deed as well.
So then you'll take those documents and create affidavits from them.
Okay.
And then also recreate the exchange that took place. And again, you're the president of the bank that gave the loan and all of that. And you just recreate those documents and put them on the public record and notify everyone.
Okay.
That the property is located properly on the land and is not lost at sea out there somewhere.
Now, to say that the original loan company is out of business, but the Bank of America took it over.
Okay, and Brian Moynihan, which is the custodian in the office of CEO of Bank of America, is under the authority of the Moors.
Okay. Yeah, I saw there was a letter for him, correct?
There sure is.
Okay.
And, you know, again, subjects are subjects are subjects are subjects. Period. And the thing is, this is what I love about all of this is we're not even hearing from they're not even out there rebutting the stuff we put out there on the public record because they know. They're not even saying, oh, we heard that they had $100 million lien. That's not, no, they're not doing that. Now, when we first started doing liens, there were some Moors who were not quite doing the lien, like they were trying to do liens in the corporate status because they wanted corporate recognition. And all the corporates did was take that and try and use it against them. So the liens that we do, where we notify them that a lien has been done, they don't even try and rebut it because they know that's the Constitution. It says lawful money for everything. So we're not even seeing that anymore of Moors, you know, who are trying to. I get that they wanted validation from that system, but the system had to be submitted. That means put on their knees in front of their God, their creator. We had to do that by commercial documentation because that's what they can understand and stand under. The Constitution is a commercial document. And so we needed to do that. And then once we did that, then we can speak. And now that we're speaking, look how many Moors have done liens and CNN hadn't said a thing about them. All these liens, and they hadn't said nothing because they can't. This is, they can't say, oh, that's not true, it's false, they're fake, it's la la la. No. No. So it's all good.
Islam,
Empress.
So, when are the rest of the their what is it that they stated that they are resigning? When are those going to be presented to us? The rest of them, the resignation letters.
You can make them yourself. You can do that yourself. You have to resign them. They can't resign themselves. They don't have the authority to resign themselves. That's why, listen, think about this. They've been bankrupt since the beginning. But they just kept going and tap dancing and dancing around and doing things and all of that. They just kept going and going until we resigned them. We have to tell them, stop acting. We got it. You have to you can do that yourself. I mean, I'm going to present more of them, you know, as they're manifested, but that's something you're the fiduciary for all letters and everything that has to do with our state. You must fire them. That's what that whole Donald Trump, you're fired thing, that was a hint to the Moors. That's why when Grand Sheik says that Donald Trump was put there for a reason, they wanted us to know that you got to fire them. You must resign them because that's not even their office in the first place. It's ours. They can't even fire them. They can't even quit.
Islam, that's true.
They don't have the authority to say anything in our state and our nation. That's against every law out there that a subject speak into our state and start telling people what to do. They can't even tell us what they're going to do in our state. We actually have to say, you're done with this, you're done with that. Custodians do this, custodians do that. Sit down, stand up, I'm out of here. That's why, listen, they couldn't hold me in a jail cell when I spoke properly from our courts. They don't have the authority to. That is actually we're obligated to speak properly and competently and peacefully into everything that has to do with our state. That's our job. And if we had said we weren't going to do it, then it would have been 100 more years of that stuff. But that's not possible because we said that's why we came here.
Islam, that's peace.
Yes, that's peace. Peace is we speak in our own state about everything going on the land. That we're not trying to do anything from their state. We don't need to fit that system. That system is a subject. It has to be. They don't own anything.
Yes,
And yes, go ahead, nobility. Yes, I could go all day with that, but go ahead.
Yeah, the sister, what she was saying there, I was about to ask the same question because I was wondering about the I was thinking about Walmart and a way to make out an affidavit for Walmart. But the whole thing is, if I don't have the machine to make the credit, what you call the merchant cards yet, is it possible I can demonstrate without the merchant cards?
Yes, you can print out some delirium. If you can print out affidavit,
I've
you
done
can print out delirium.
Yeah, I've done that. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I might just demonstrate that real soon.
You just have to state that the Walmart that you're going to is on your land by giving the custodians in the office of. See, listen, they're going to be on our land as long as we say that they're on our land.
Right. Yeah, it's starting to make sense. Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah.
It's on.
I am so glad, nobility, because we deserve everything that we see and things that we don't see yet. We deserve all of it. We just have to know where is everything and where are we. We never left ancient Morocco. That's why the buildings are still here, and the records are still here, and all of that. We never left ancient Morocco.
Islam. Islam, Sister Light.
Islam.
The brother that was asking about VIN numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for instance, if you go to the GMC website, once you finish building the car the way you want it, he'll actually give you the VIN number. Because I was able to do that with the Cadillacs. And we have like 15 Cadillac VIN numbers.
Okay.
So we had leaned the VIN numbers in Swampomac. So now we call that Cadillac dealership Bay Cadillac. Is in White Plains. Corporate White Plains.
There it is. I did not know that, so thank you for that, nobility.
Oh yeah. So when I kept looking on there, after I got the I think it was 16 Cadillacs, they disabled that feature because they can tell my IP address. And so I had to hide it. So then they know that I'm looking at different things. You know,
so
they take
yeah, the reason they do that, nobility, is it's time for you to do what needs to be done. Other Moors will be able to get to access that feature, but then you got to do something with the information. You have to actually demonstrate that information, and that's the only reason they deactivate anything. Is okay, you got what you needed, demonstrate it first, then we'll put it back up there.
You're right. So guess what happened? Sister Light, you know Sister Light, right? She comes around and she does the appointment fiduciary for GMC. So that I can take that one and use it for my demonstration.
Islam. Our ancestors, listen, we have the answers to every piece, every part, everything that has to do with our land. All we got to do is just talk about it and then do it. Do it.
So also what they were doing, at night they would move all the Cadillacs from where, because they were afraid we would come at night to come get them, so they would move them to a different part of the dealership.
Oh, that's protection for the Cadillacs, because people have been going to dealerships doing crazy stuff to our property. It's our property, so we're not going to do anything crazy to it. But I get it. I get it. I get it. When you see things like that going on, nobility, know that that's not to hide something from us, because there's no place you can hide anything on our land.
They're protecting our property.
They're protecting our property.
I yield the floor.
Islam. That is some great information that they give you. They assign a VIN number when you build it online. Because I probably just need to go and build something also. But I wanted to demonstrate something where the Moors can just go down the street on their land in their county, that they put the county charter on the public record. Look at it. Look at the conveyance. Write down the VIN number. Look at it. See what kind it is. You can even get a purchase order printed up. Just tell them, hey, can you print up a purchase order for that conveyance? And they'll do that. They'll talk to you and pull it right up out of the thing. And then you just make sure you put a termination of corporate contracts on the public record again, which I did. Because sometimes when they say, well, I need a name to put the purchase order in, and I need a this and a that. Listen, when I say the name, I'm talking about me. When you put it in your system, you're talking about a corpse that you put in your system. And so then I said, okay, I'll just put a termination of corporate, or I can say, I hereby terminate all corporate contracts right there on the spot. And then take the purchase order and take it and do what you need to do. Create your own documents from it. So, you know, because we're not contracting with anybody. We're actually stating what is rightfully ours on our land. And Moors know this. The things that we're doing, the foreign hybrids had to do this back in the 1920s, 30s, 1871, 1861. They had to do all of this stuff too. Create affidavits and all of that, and use their capitalism. And so all we're doing is looking at what they did and doing what the prophet said. They'll be here long enough to teach us how to govern. Okay, enough already. We got it. Let's keep moving. Yeah. Some don't think we have to do all that. Some just want to stay there in air and just get everything. But that's not what competent heirs do. Competent heirs learn the process, because I'll say this about these processes. The Moors that take the time to learn these processes right now are going to be governing everyone else, every other documentation, not the people, but the documentation that comes through. You're going to be governing those processes. The banking process and the conveyance process and the domicile process and the insurance process and all of that. The government is manifested now, because there's a whole billions of Moors that are coming awake to this information, and they're going to need us to be right where we are right now and continue implementing these processes. That's why we have to know what we know. So when they come and they have questions, we'll be able to say, this is what you do about this, and this is what you do about that, but you got to do the paperwork yourself, because we're not going to do the paperwork for you. There it is.
Islam.
Islam.
I have another question. When like I refinanced, and then also like over a period of years, the bank, like the company changes, are those companies receiving like a full payment, like the full value of the loan?
Yes, let me tell you how they do that. They just use corporate paper and liens to transfer the value from one ledger to the other ledger.
Okay, so that paperwork for refinancing, and also when companies change, you know, like I think it's every 7 years or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, they do that, and no real quote unquote money changes hands. All it is they say, okay, company A is buying all of the debt from company B. And how do they do that? They just adopt the debt onto their ledger, onto their books. They say, okay, they have 5,000 cars where there's outstanding loans. Since they've kept records of that, we'll just take that debt and put it on our books, and they take it off their books. That's all they do. And that's all we're doing when we do liens. And then a sovereign exchange with the dollarium, everything's been prepaid for. All we're doing is saying we know how to competently express that everything already belongs to us, but it has to be accounted for. That's all. All we're doing is that's why they were called an administration, because all they did was the paperwork, lots of paperwork. And so all we're doing is ministry work where commerce is concerned and the land and all of that.
Yeah.
Islam, thank you.
You're welcome. They do ledger to ledger, credits and debits. We're doing the same thing, except there's a sovereign in the process that is putting the property in the sovereign trust. And that's the sovereign state. That's why we do everything. You know, as far as I'm concerned, and this is just me, this is not, you know, other Moors want things in their personal trust. For me, as long as the state has it, I'm good with the state having it. The state is us. So any property that I have is state property. You know, whereas some Moors want their domicile in their personal, you know, private trust and all of that. I get that. I get that. To me, it belongs to the state, for me.
Yeah, that's what I did. I feel it's more protection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, for me, with the state, it's not going anywhere. The property is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And, you know, as long as the beneficiary is, you know, for example, if it's a domicile, my heiress is the beneficiary, the state will transfer the beneficiary status back and forth. You know, and that's the case right now. It may not always stay that way, but right now, while we're doing state business 100% of the time, that's enough for me right now. It's all about our vast estate. It's all about the empire, period. And everything that I get, as far as I'm concerned, is furthering the empire, period. Conveyances, domiciles, all of that is so that I can get government work done, period. It's not for me to just sit up and enjoy, you know, but it's nothing wrong with sitting up and enjoying if, you know, if that's what Moors want to do. So anyway, are there any other questions, comments, etc.? All of this stuff to me is about how many other Moors can we reach? So all of the things that I did in church when I was growing up, where we were witnessing to people and all of that stuff, that's what we're doing now. We're empire and the vast estate and all of that is concerned. It's now about eternity and knowing who we are and all of that. So that's the only reason I would like I would have a conveyance and a 10,000 square foot domicile is because there are some Moors out there that are asleep that the only way they're going to wake up is see somebody with a 10,000 square foot domicile and they'll say, "Oh wow, how'd you get that?" I got that by declaring my nationality. Some people need that. Listen, that's how anybody got anything done in that other setting. We were promised a bunch of things, so we all went to work in corporate whatever. That's how the fall happened, is we were seeing things and we said, well, we want that too. Next thing you know, we gave our capitalism, supposedly pretended to give our capitalism to somebody else, thinking we're getting a benefit. Yes, Empress, multi-level marketing indeed. So now it's like, okay, we got some big fish out there, and every Moor is a big fish because they're sovereign. You know, no bigger fish than a Moor that does not have a domicile. No bigger fish than that, than a Moor who thinks they don't have anything. Do you know how much time they'll save because they don't have to try and fight their way out of a bunch of fraudulent debt? So the Moors that are on the corner that need a place to stay and they need a domicile, it's going to be a piece of cake for them because all they're doing is the other side of this process.
They're just claiming the new. They're not glued to the old and having to pull themselves out and fight their way through the psychology of, am I going to lose this domicile? Am I going to lose this conveyance or this benefit? They don't have to fight through that. No bigger fish, I'm telling you. So let's keep going. Let's do this. Islam. With that being said, if there is nothing further from this Islam,
document we went over, that's going to be under the this video.
Yes.
Today. Okay.
Islam.
Islam.
That's the Independence Proclamation. We just want to make sure that it is clear that we have rebutted the Declaration of Independence corporate construct. At some point, we'll rebut the secret treaty of Verona, where our Moors who still think that they're in a church and that the church is not a commercial venue. They think it's something spiritual when it's really commercial. The secret treaty of Verona, we're going to properly rebut that as well. Yes, nobility, Islam.
Yeah, Islam. The conveyance piece affidavit you showed earlier, and you said that would be going to the sheriffs. That same one also was going to go to the dealer also, right?
The ancestors didn't have me send it to the dealer because they wanted to show me this part right here. It's really the sheriff, the custodians in the office of sheriff that needed the documentation. Listen, the custodians doing business as dealers already know the stuff is not theirs. A car lot is really a consignment feature. It's a consignment feature.
Okay.
They know they don't own any of the stuff on there. They just, the real owners said, put it on the lot and then cut yourself in to each sale, but the stuff doesn't belong to you. That's why when people go on to lots and they burn the whole place up, the people that work there don't even worry about it because it's not their stuff. You know, people go on to lots and they damage cars and things like that. The people that work there are not worried about that coming out of their paycheck because it's not even their stuff. They're custodians, period.
Islam. So theoretically, could you go directly to a manufacturer using, like, designing, like the other noble said, a vessel, a conveyance that you want, and then by way of a purchase order, just do it and then have it directly delivered and into your estate, your trust, without even going through the third party of a dealership?
Empress, are you sovereign? Can you do that?
I'm thinking out loud. I would imagine, yes. That's why I'm imagining this.
Yes, you can. Who's going to tell you you can't do that? Who's going to say that? Who's bold enough to say that?
Okay, I'm just thinking out loud, cut out the third-party dealership.
I'm glad you asked the question, Empress. I'm glad you asked that because every time I hear questions like that, I get goosebumps because I think you just don't know how sovereign you are. Okay. But yes, my only answer to any question about can we do this and can we do that is, who's going to tell you no?
Just have to demonstrate it. Okay.
That's it. That's it. That's all a part of, too, of demonstrating at the level of your overstanding. If you understand how to demonstrate that way, who's going to tell you no? A dealership can't tell you no because they don't own anything. They used your metals and your rubber to make the tires off of your vast estate and your paper to print things out and your electricity to turn on the computers and all of that. That's your stuff. Who's going to say, well, no, even though you own everything, no. Even though these documents are competent, we just don't think you should have it. That's treason. And you can be hung for that.
Islam, Empress.
Islam.
For liens, for conveyances, the VIN number, does it, well, I know the VIN number needs to be on the lien, but does the make and model, is that necessary, or does it just make it more competent, or is the VIN number enough?
The VIN number is enough. However, if you want to put more on there and be more specific, you can. The VIN number is enough.
Okay, I just wanted to know if I needed to go back and redo the lien. Thank you. And Noble Malik, if you want to put your email address in the chat, I can send you the link to my website as well.
Empress, what is your website if you want to say it on this platform?
Yes, I will say it, and I'll also put a link in the chat. Give me one moment to pull it up.
Oh,
thank you, baby. It's nation building, a space to create, and create, well, okay, so nation building, and there's no spaces, no capital letters or anything. It's all lowercase or in capitis diminuto nolo, and there's no spaces. Nation building, A, and then space is spelled S-P-A-Y-C-E, 2, T-O. Create is spelled K-R-E-A-T-E, dot GoDaddySites.com, and I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay.
Wow.
There's a question that says, once the 21 documents where the fiduciary is concerned, after putting it on the public record, what's the next step? Well, what is your goal? What are you, is it to claim a domicile? Is it to secure what you currently have? Is it to rebut some debt? You know, whatever it is that you have to do, you would then proceed to demonstrate that. Whatever it is that you need to do to save yourself, you would demonstrate that as your next step. Once you put your documents on the public record, Morris, then go ahead and start freeing yourself from anything that you think is any type of debt or any type of whatever is going on. For some, it's they want to assist their heirs. For others, it's someone tried to, you know, attach them to some debt of some kind, you know, or something of that nature. You know, just go ahead and set about freeing yourself and then claiming, securing what you currently have. More, even for the more that are in apartments, secure that apartment for yourself first, then go about claiming domiciles and things like that. Okay. Now, for the Moors who are new on these calls, if you get any inboxes from Moors on these calls, don't assume that the inbox is from a Moor who, you know, always demonstrate at the level of your overstanding, because the Moors on these calls are great Moors. They're very competent Moors. But at the beginning and end of the day, you must do your own study. And also, every now and then, a hybrid will come into the calls and be doing a little mischief. You know, so make sure that if you get any, you know, if you get any inboxes, if they don't want to put it on the public, on the public forum, then just kind of keep your sovereign filter on, you know, because, you know, we know the hybrids come in sometimes and try and clone, like they've been doing, trying to clone things, you know. They've been trying to be clones of Americans and clones of sovereigns and clones of states and nations and clones of owners and things like that, when we know that that's not who they are. That is not who they are. So with that being said, if there's nothing further.
I have one more thing.
Yes, Islam.
So Swan Pomac, we lean the Marriott. We lean the Marriott. So what we're going to do for all our brothers and sisters on Northwestern Maxim, we're going to create one of those cards, CEO of Marriott, so everyone can use it.
Yes, Islam. And AA222141, make sure you put that on the merchant card also, because that is the tax number. And not taxed means not taxed, period. That means nothing is due, because anytime they even say this is a hotel fee, that is an attempted tax on something that's already yours.
Roger.
Yeah, Islam.
Islam.
Okay, Morris, with that being said, if there is nothing further, we will adjourn and meet back here on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. Pacific time. And until then, thank you so much for your votes. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for your demonstrations, because your demonstrations are making our demonstrations more powerful, because there's so many of us.
Appreciated.
Yes, thank you. There's so many of us that are demonstrating that we're making each other's demonstrations grow. So thank you so much to Nobility. I'm honored that you're here. Islam, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam. Thank you.
Islam, peace and grand rising.
Islam, grand rising.
Islam.
Islam, grand rising.
Islam.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, grand rising.
Peace and love. Islam, nobody. Most appreciated.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Peace and love.
Islam, peace and love, Nobility.
Peace and love.
Islam, peace and love, Empress. Peace and love, Empress.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, Empress.